This book has a line that says, "What is it you have to do anyway? A mercenary's got a mercenary, right? Hope you're hungry for nothing." Hi, my name's Rachel, and today we are talking about A Court This Cruel and Lovely by Stasia Stark. This was requested for me to read by my patron, Astra. This book is recommended for fans of Sarah J. Maas and Fourth Wing, which I think we all know is not me, but I mean, you know, sometimes the comp titles are wrong. And I could find something that I like in almost any book. There's actually a moment in Onyx Storm that I thought was cute. By the way, Fourth Wing at least knew that it wanted to be a dragon riding college book. I have no idea what this book wanted to be. Hope you're hungry for nothing. If we're gonna do enemies to lovers, secret fae hiding in plain sight, people with powers being persecuted, wow, that was a lot of P's. Orphan girl is secretly the heir to the kingdom, that's fine. I'm cool with that. But we took all of those and did nothing of consequence or of enjoyment with them. It's like we tried as hard as we possibly could to be forgettable. This book had the most boring and forgettable main characters. You know those fantasy name generators? This is like if a whole book was a fantasy name generated name. Wow, that sentence got away from me. I don't even need to give you the synopsis for this because nothing here especially stands out. You've read all of this before if you've heard me talk about all of this before. There's an evil king, there's magic, there's fae. Our main characters are Priska and Lorien. If you were saying, I want to read about a dragon riding college, I could say, I guess you could read Fourth Wing. This book, I can't say that about anything in particular. Nothing of consequence stands out here. You've seen all of this before. It doesn't differentiate itself in any possible way. This is a generic potato chip of a book that you don't need to try to know what it tastes like. Oh, you've never seen that brand before? It doesn't matter. You know what it tastes like already. This book pissed me off. You know what makes me feel better though? Cozying up to a better book in Ultimate Comfort, which when I think Ultimate Comfort, that's like the bread and butter of today's sponsor, which is Parade. Parade is a female-owned, all bodies inclusive brand that makes the only bras I wear. I'm wearing one right now. I love this color, this dark gray kind of blue color, but the colors are second to the comfort. I've raved about Parade for years, even before I worked with them. I've always loved their bralettes. I have since tried their underwear and their bodysuits, which I have fallen in love with. I had to put a Parade bra underneath it so YouTube doesn't get mad, but look how cute this is. And this is so soft. Are you kidding me? I love my black one, but the like planets and moons is just, it's super cute. Like imagine this under like a jumper, like overalls. Are you kidding? This is a bustier and I have not worn a bustier in years and this is so stupidly cute. It's really comfortable. Like this isn't digging at all. I could honestly like throw like a button up over this and be good to go. Like I'm happy with this. I love this. It's so soft and so comfy. Parade makes sustainable and affordable bras, underwear, bralettes, and apparel in a variety of sizes, including up to 5X. I am loyal to Parade and they are loyal back. These are the most comfortable bras and underwear and bodysuits that I have ever owned. The mesh is called Silky Mesh. It's butter soft, but since it's mesh, it's also super breathable. So I'm not sweating my literal tits off because it's still 85 degrees in Florida, even though it is winter. Comfort and not sweating are priorities for me. Stop living your life in discomfort. Give yourself the gift of non-sweaty, comfy titties by wearing Parade. You can click the link below and use my code READS30 for 30% off site-wide, excluding the sales items, and join me in being a part of the Parade Sweat-Free Titty Committee. I need them to print a bra that says Sweat-Free Titty Committee on it. Who do I call about that? Hit that link below, use code READS30, and thank you so much to Parade for sponsoring today's video. Let's get into this story of Priska and Lorien, two people that, God, this book could have benefited from them dying in the end. Hi, before we begin, I need to issue a couple of disclaimers. This video, as my friend Natalie says when she does her videos, this video is not for the author, this video is not for friends of the author, and this video is most certainly not for super fans of this book or this author. I did not like this book. I have almost nothing nice to say about it. It would have been just a book that was very mediocre, but there was a couple of things in here that made me uncomfortable. Now, that is not a judgment of the author, it is a judgment of the book. I don't like the love interest in this. I think that there are some big red flags that are passed off as romantic. I assume that this was not done with any sort of malicious intent, and I am not thrusting upon the author the idea that this was done with malicious intent. Similarly, this book has a theme of talking about the word victim in the derogatory, which is something that I have complained about before in other books that I deeply do not like for personal reasons. It is not talking about victims of SA, which I am. It's talking about victims in several different capacities over and over and over. in a way that is derogatory, and I deeply do not like this. And this goes back to the love interest, because the way that he talks about being a victim in particular, I found to be a sea of red flags. I'm not trying to prescribe onto anybody else how to feel about the word victim. All I can tell you is that the way that it's talked about in this book made me personally uncomfortable. You can feel however you want about it. Again, I don't think that this was done maliciously. I think that there is a very common mentality of toxic positivity surrounding the word victim. People prefer the word survivor. I talked to some friends about this. One of my friends said it's like people who really want everyone with cancer to be fighting a battle where some cancer patients just feel like they are sick. Another friend said, I feel like the you're a survivor, not a victim theme often leaves out people like me who don't fit the perfect victim stereotype. Friend A said, not everyone did something about it or even understood there was something hurting them or could do something, etc., etc., etc. If someone hurts you, you're a victim. To imply that being a victim is weak is saying you're doing something wrong by being hurt by something hurtful. Friend B said, I am absolutely both because I survived, but I was victimized by people who took advantage of me. Friend B also said, I feel like the you're a survivor narrative is often toxic positivity pushed onto us. I don't feel like a survivor when somebody triggers me, as in triggers certain trauma responses that have happened because of being victimized. I don't want them to understand the pain I feel. I just want them to listen. Friend C popped in and said, also, not all victims survive. So then I popped back in and I said, the whole you're a survivor thing is people trying to feel better about what happened to other people. That's not actually about me. That's them making it about them. It's more comfortable for them to think of it as a happy destination rather than an uncomfortable lifelong journey, a journey they don't want to see all the parts of. Sometimes I am not well because I was victimized by a grown man. Other days I feel empowered by talking about it and saying, hey, I survived this. We are valid on both kinds of days, not just on the ones that make other people feel better. Particularly the way that the love interest says that he is so enraged at the idea of Priska, the main character, being a victim. It says, the thought of Priska being a victim in this world was quite simply intolerable, especially considering she carried the potential to never be a victim again. It's as if victimhood is this gross status. That's the way the narrative comes off. And this is not just something we talk about with Priska. There's also somebody who is imprisoned, who Priska herself says, this was a man who refused to be victimized by life. This whole conversation is a big reason why I gave this book 1 star. Again, you do not have to feel that way about this book. You can feel any sort of way about the word victim versus survivor. I'm telling you my personal feelings, and why I gave this book such a low rating was in big part because of that. Again, this is not a reflection of you. I am not giving you, a person, 1 star. Whether you are a fan of the book, a friend of the author, or the author themselves, that is not a reflection of you. That is just my reflection of a work of fiction that I read. And before anybody asks again in the comments, please do not write, why did you read this if you thought you were going to hate it? Just to reiterate, I did not pick this book for myself. This book was picked for me by a patron. I previously had a Patreon tier with a perk that patrons could decide a book for me to read. This was just the next on my list. I read it, and here are my honest thoughts. Thank you for listening. Moving back onto the video. The beginning of this is so ridiculous. I think that this was pantsed, which is fine. It's just if you pants and then you go back and you don't edit well, it shows. It was just like, I want to do people being oppressed because magic and girl with secret power. And then we typed and then we didn't go back and fix anything to make this into a good story. It's just a story and you have read it before. So in this world, we have a lot of class division, and the poor people out in the town, which is where our main character Priska lives. Poor people out in the towns, like when we open the book, we're opening on a ceremony because you get magic when you're born that was bestowed upon them by the gods. And when you're a baby, that gets taken from you by a priestess. There's like a whole ceremony in the villages. So as infants, it says, we gift our magic to the gods so that they may be pleased with our offering and grow it under their care. And then when they reach the age of 25, they have to do another ceremony where their magic, a little bit of it is given back to them in order to, do special stuff. So then they have to like get to work and they use their magic to help them contribute to society. It's not a bad idea on its own. It's just a bad idea for this book because we do nothing good with it. It also seems like a lot of There's just a lot of steps there for no payoff. And they do this because they believe that the gods need their magic in order to keep them safe from the Fae. But of course, this book opens with her saying, but why did it have to be this way? Now, I should have caught on earlier on that this book is going to ask the questions itself, and it's almost as if this was a substitute for like, well, if the character is asking the same questions that the reader is asking, then maybe I don't have to actually answer them. No, you do. You do have to answer them. Just because the character is asking the questions does not mean that we don't have to follow those logical trains of thought, but okay. So right in front of her eyes in the town square, someone is found out to have been using their magic, and I believe their grandparents are murdered because they were all keeping this secret. It doesn't matter. None of this matters. It's trying to show you what life is like in this world in a very clumsy way that I read this twice. I read the first chapter twice. It was trying to info dump, but also it was trying to do that through actions, and it just right over.
You know nothing, little man.
Right over my head. So she sees this guy in the town square who has green eyes, and she's like, oh, I recognize those eyes. I see them in my dreams. She then goes and talks to her mom, and her mom is basically like a seer and deals with a lot of migraines and stuff. And I was like, oh, migraine rep? Nope, not doing that. Great, okay. Me, I guess. So her mom says some like ominous shit to her that is supposed to be foreshadowing. It's extremely lazy to foreshadow this way. And then we get a series of events back to back to back after this that lead us directly back to the guy with the green eyes who is the love interest Lorien. Okay, here's a rundown of what happens. I'm not going to waste time going over it. I already have 44 pages of notes and I'm trying to save you time. So let's just go over this quickly. Her friend is getting hit on by this gross man and she defends her friend, but in order to defend her friend, she uses her power that she's been holding in secret, which is the power to stop time.
Check, please. Time portal.
Which was not super clear to me until later on, but that is her power, which explains the hourglass on the front. She stops time, gets this girl to get away from this nasty man. The girl has seen her use a power. That's illegal. You're supposed to give up all of your magic. Apparently she didn't. So she is called one of the corrupt. If you keep one of your powers, if you keep your power, then you are called corrupt. You haven't done what you're supposed to do. So the girl goes and tattletales on her. So Priska's mom is like, oh, Priska, they're coming for you. They run to the river and her mom tells her, I'm not your real mom. Of course she's not. I've been raising you and your brother, Tibris, but you're not my real daughter. I took you when you were young. The guards come upon them.
I smell sentinel.
Her mom shoves her into the river and we don't see her mom again. She washes up on shore and who should come around? Who should come a-knockin'? Green eyes met mine, cool and indifferent. I knew those eyes. I'd looked into them at the gifting ceremony too, but how? Why? We stared at each other for a long moment, and I waited for any glimmer of recognition. How was it possible that I dreamed about this man? This does not get answered in this book. I'm not asking it to. Let's not do that thing where you're like, oh, it's not a plot hole. I'm not saying it's a plot hole. I'm just saying, in case you were wondering, no, why she sees him in her dreams does not get answered in this book. We spend the entire book her questioning this on the inside and not just outright saying, why am I seeing you in my dreams? When she asks questions and when she does not is completely ridiculous. So this guy named Gallon, who's traveling with Mr. Green Eyes Lorien, was like trying to be nice to her. I think he gave her a cloak and she's like, why won't you all help me? And Lorien, the green-eyed guy, is like, nah, we're getting the out of here. It's not my problem. Please, I croaked. The beautiful man ignored me, turning his horse. I was so inconsequential that his expression had already turned thoughtful, his mind clearly elsewhere. I memorized that harshly beautiful face. My temper burned bright when provoked, but I'd never felt this ice-cold rage before. This need to see someone hurt the way I was hurting. One day, some way, I'd make him pay. If I lived through this, I'd make him regret leaving me here. I had a plan. I just had to start walking. And one day I'd find the man who ordered Gallon to leave me for dead. I'd find him and I'd make him pay. This is so dramatic for no reason because she is not going to make him pay. This was just here for the sake of trying to make her sound like, oh, she's out for vengeance because he left a stranger on a riverbank. She could have been a trap. He has no idea. Okay, I guess let's just be dramatic. Let's just go with that. And of course, we also needed them to separate so that she could go randomly kill a guy. This like bounty hunter kind of guy comes upon her. They get into it and she ends up stabbing him.
Come on, they're gonna kill him.
Good.
What?
She feels like the gods have rejected her. She feels like everything is shit because the gods were the ones that rejected my offering when I was just days old, leaving me in possession of my power. I would never know the reason, but now I'd be hunted for the rest of my life solely because the gods had decided they didn't want my power. The unfairness of it all took my breath away. It also takes my breath away because why people don't collectively start saying, hey, why do the gods leave some people with their power? That's interesting. Nope, we just ignore that, I guess. And instead of having this like, I don't know, we could do this sort of self-loathing thing. Feel like I've been rejected by the gods. Internalize all of that religious stuff that isn't written in here, where it's like, the gods rejected me. They didn't take my power. What if my power is so corrupt even the gods didn't want it? Instead, we just breeze right past that. Why would we do theme? That seems boring, I guess. Instead, she's crying in the forest. I'd always looked pitiful when I cried. It was one of the reasons I hated it so much. Wow, thank you. I didn't need to know that. I don't care.
This kid's crying. Do something.
She then gets into it with a guard that she sees, who she was like, oh, I'm so sad and pitiful. I lost my family. And then I think she pushes him in the river. All of this is inconsequential. None of this matters, okay? We're just trying to work her way back to the guy with the green eyes. She's like, I can't light a fire. Even the guards don't light fires. They travel with umber stone, a large back stone that could be charged with magic and would release heat. This never comes up again as far as I recall. We just throw fantasy elements in here and then we don't do anything with them. Anyway, she comes upon a group of men, and it's the guy with the green eyes, Lorian, and his companions he travels with. You know, his band of merry thieves. I recognize that group of men, stretched out by their campfire without a care in the world. She sees Lorian, and then she doesn't see him anymore, and of course he's behind her. Did you really think we didn't know you were here, village girl? Did you really think we'd let you take one of our horses? What did we do to deserve your theft? You left me for dead. You survived. No thanks to you. Oh, good. The banter's starting. She accidentally used her magic on him, and he's like, don't use your magic on me again. He asks, how did you end up in the river? And she says, it was my mother. She pushed me into the river. I'd been attempting to deny it since the moment Mama had pushed me, but it was time to face the truth. My mother was dead. The guards would have killed her instantly. It is weird that you didn't think about your mom at all, but what's even weirder is that you didn't think about the fact that your mom, before she pushed you in the river, said, you're not my daughter, I kidnapped you. I would think of nothing else. Personally, I'd be like, where the did I come from? And is there a possibility I could go back since I'm now on the run? So he starts to ask her about her magic power. Can you use your magic whenever you please, or do you have to be in peril? I've only used it a few times in my life. He says, all right, I have an offer for you. We're also going to the city. You're heading to the city for whatever reason she's going to the city. And she immediately just decides that these people are mercenaries, even though they did not say that they were mercenaries. Of course they were. Mercenaries were either returning to a client, their job done, or blah, blah, blah. They do the kind of work that would involve someone ending up with a much lighter purse or worse, dead. So they're criminals? How are they getting away with criminal behavior? Anyway, I don't understand this world. We could use someone like you to help us survive, undetected. Ah, someone with magic like mine would be very helpful to mercenaries who needed to sneak into a city. How did you come to the conclusion that these people are mercenaries just because they left you on the side of a river? How did we get from point A to point B? Question. He's like, all right, I'll give you 3 meals a day, blankets, a horse, and whatever clothes we can find to fit you in. In exchange, you help us at the city gates. Sorry. You want me to use my magic on purpose in front of the king's guards? Are you mad? If you use your magic properly, no one will know we were there. And I'm like, wow, I cannot believe she needed that explained to her. That's bonkers. You needed your own magic explained to you? Yeah, he wanted you to use your magic to stop time. It's kind of self-explanatory that it's about the guards not seeing them. Oh my God. I don't know how to use my magic. I will teach you. You can do that? And she thinks to herself, what if I could learn to wield my power? I could use it to keep myself safe. With my gift, I have a much greater chance of staying alive. Oh, he was good. Get real. You've got to be this. That was the stupidest thing I've ever heard a main character in an adult book think to herself. Are we joking? Is this a hee hee ha ha? Oh, he was good. That was so self-explanatory. And you know what? You know what really pisses me off about this? There was no reason that she couldn't think that to herself. Something about him, instead of just immediately assuming that he was a mercenary, she could have thought for some reason that he was a way for her to get into the city. She could have thought, if this guy trains me how to use my magic, I can be useful. We can make a bargain. There's no reason not to give her some power or, a normal human thought process of an adult human to think, okay, how do I use this to my advantage? Instead, she can't even get from thought A to thought B without him hand-holding her. With my gift, I'd have a much greater chance of staying alive. Yeah, duh. So then she's like, well, if I come in with a pack of mercenaries who can't be seen in the city, if I get caught with you, I'm worse than dead. Why? What's the context of that? What are mercenaries doing in this world regularly that I don't understand? I feel like we're leaving out context. He's like, but we both know you'll never make it to the city by yourself. Why? What's between her and the city that would prevent her from making it there herself? Why? Explain your world. I either die out here alone, get caught by the guards who were trailing me, or I took my chances with these men. He wanted a deal. I'd let these mercenaries teach me everything they knew about magic, and then I'd use that magic to abandon them close to the border, the way they'd abandoned me. Sometimes you have to take your revenge where you can find it. Oh, Pete cringe. Good. We're pretending that this main character now can make plans, when previously she had to be told that her power could help her stay alive, even though she's used it to do that before. Cool beans. The next chapter, she's like, oh, you didn't tell me we'd be sharing a horse. And he says, did you see any spare horses with us, sweetheart? And I said in my notes, I mean, you said in the previous chapter that you'd give her a horse. He's like, all right, I'll give you 3 meals a day, blankets, a horse, and whatever clothes we can find to fit you in. But okay, I can share with one of the other men. My horse is the largest and the most suitable for carrying 2 people. Guys, look, there's only 1 horse instead of only 1 bed. Oh my goodness. Don't worry, we're gonna do only 1 bed later. We're just gonna do only 1 horse first. Get in the saddle before I put you there myself. Oh yeah, he's like a dommy daddy, which I didn't catch on to until later, but yeah, apparently we were doing that. Which is fine, it's just, you don't have to make the main character stupid in order to make her love interest a dominant guy. She can still be smart and you do that. I don't know who needs to hear that. His arms came around my waist and gripped the reins. His body was so big, I was instantly surrounded by him. What are you, a pole? His masculine scent wound up my nostrils. Axe body spray? And I forced myself to breathe through my mouth. It's definitely Axe body spray. The man was oversized with biceps larger than my thighs. From what I'd seen so far, he wasn't exactly a lumbering oaf either. No, he moved panther silent and far quicker than a man of his bulk should have been able to. But of course, they're mean to each other, and he says, you're annoying my horse. They give her a bunch of clothes that don't fit her, but she is on the run, and what they could have done is disguise her, but instead they didn't do that. And the only reason I can assume that they didn't do that is because she needed to remain hot. And if we cut off all her hair and make her look like a boy, she's not hot anymore. Even though it's the thing that makes the most sense to do, we're just not gonna do that, because then it's not sexy anymore, I guess. She could have been passed off as the younger brother of one of these dudes. Oh, she doesn't have the blue mark that denotes somebody who's 25 and got us some of their magic back because she's not 25. She's an 18-year-old boy. And they could have, I don't know, covered up the titties, put her in baggy clothes, slap on an eye patch, cut off her hair. But no, she then very casually, and by very casually I mean randomly, inserts it into a conversation where somebody's talking about having kids. She says, congratulations, do you mind if I ask what kind of magic you have? And the text says subtle. And I'm like, just because you point it out doesn't mean that it's suddenly funny and makes sense. It's still stupid. One of the non-mercenaries can understand every language spoken in the kingdom. I don't think this ever comes up again. Another of them, I get glimpses of a person's past, and she thinks to herself about her mom at her last moments and picturing Tiberius in all kinds of, her brother in all kinds of terrible situations. And I'm like, why didn't you ask this dude to learn about your past before your mom kidnapped you? Why didn't we do that? No? Okay. She then learns about that they have Fae fire with them. People from Gramalia use Fae gifts every day without being labeled sympathizers. I don't think the word sympathizers comes up ever again either. Such a thing was unimaginable in a Protha. Is that the name of the country we're in? I honestly don't remember. That's how little it gets used. It's one of the best ways you can ensure that you can always light a fire when you're traveling, and then they put it out with something called damask weed. This is only here so that we can use damask weed later to put out a fire, even though that kind of fire is, it doesn't matter. I just think it's really funny that like they have fae fire and this isn't suspicious, but then she was just talking about how the guards use like some kind of stone. This is okay. Anyway, she's feeling sorry for herself again, and he is the main love interest is a mean man. We don't have time for your self-pity. Gods, I'd never known such a cold, vicious bastard. My tears dried up, replaced by fury. He tries to teach her how to use her magic. I could stop time for a few seconds at the most. I used it when I was afraid. It was one of the reasons we moved villages so frequently when I was a small child. My mother was a seer, and my father was a mind healer, so we were always welcome in new places. She also asks this guy, I need you to explain why I still have my power. Now, this isn't specific to her. She should be asking, I don't understand why some people are not completely powerless like everybody else is supposed to be. Why does that happen? Do you know? Once you understand just how you and others like you have been lied to, there's no turning back. Knowledge was power, and I needed as much power as I could get. I'll tell you what you want to know when you've mastered your power. Then we switch into Lorian's POV. Aren't you excited about that? Me too. She'd insisted on bathing in the freezing river that morning, almost turning blue. Her body was so slight compared to ours. Wow! Thank you so much for that.
You always liked pushing around people smaller than you. Well, I'm smaller.
I definitely need it reiterated how bigly big you guys are and how teeny tiny small she is. Oh, Mickey Mouse is coming back. Good God. He hasn't told her, but they are not traveling east towards the city. She's fallen asleep on the horse that they're sharing. Her head lolled, and for a minute, panic slammed into my gut. Was she dead?
He was near death.
Not near enough.
We needed her power at the city gate. If I was being honest with myself, the thought of her dying was disconcerting. And then it says, oh, she was good. Just like in her POV, how he was like telling her, hey, your magic can help you. And she's like, oh, he's good. I don't know why they say that about each other, but they do. So when she wakes up, she's like, why are we traveling south? You're breaking our agreement. And he thinks, no one annoyed me like this woman. Nobody on earth has ever annoyed you like a woman asking you why you're going the wrong direction. Okay, sure. No time frame was ever specified. And then he says, at seeing her annoyed, there were few things more amusing than seeing this woman riled. You just said 3 sentences ago, no one annoyed me like this woman. Now it's amusing how riled she is. Which one is it? It's both, because he's like super duper chill and cool. Oh, I love being annoying, but also like if she died, I'd be like kind of annoyed, I guess. I don't know. I don't care. This book has a line that says, what is it you have to do anyway? A mercenary's got a mercenary, right? Okay. Anyway, we changed back to Priska's POV. For now, at least I could be myself. I didn't have to hide the spark of power that wanted to jump out into the world. She asked him, hey, what were you doing in the village when the gifting ceremony happened? Because I like saw you. You know, I locked eyes with your green eyes, obviously. He's like, your priestess insisted on even more blather than most. Anyway, they go to, it's just like another thing where it's like, he's too cool for school and he's so above everything and doesn't believe in any of this. And this never like this, I don't know if are mercenaries like that? Do they live on the fringes of society? Do they not agree with all this religion? I don't know. It's never explained. He's just a bad boy. Anyway, they go to an inn because of course they do. And they're like, hey, you'll have to sleep in your own room. You can't sleep in the same room as us because you'd get a reputation in a town that they are staying in for a night. Okay, so they get to this inn and of course there is a tavern attached to it, as you know, we do. And there's a man at this tavern who pushes the cloak off of her face, this drunk guy, and he says, we have a wee beauty in our midst. Where'd you come from, lady? And of course, Lorian shows up and says, move or I'll move you. Those green eyes were filled with an icy rage. He moved so fast, my breath caught in my throat. Stepping to the side, he lashed out and he slaps the guy in the face. And then he slaps the guy in the face again, the guy who she is calling Beard. Beard calls her a She has to tell Lorian that's enough. His gaze dropped to my hand, and when his eyes met mine, they were still feral. And then he's like, you're hurt. But she's not. She's just crying. and it says, I'm upset because the water spilled and I really wanted that water.
This kid's crying. Do something.
Her water spilled because Beard was being a gross man. So she's crying over spilled water, I guess. And one of the guys who he travels with, one of the non-mercenaries, says, we haven't seen you cry before. We wondered if maybe you were on your woman time. Wow, I'm really, really glad that this book exists. This is great. What fantastic writing. In the next chapter, they talk about how, well, she thinks about how being with 5 men draws attention. I could pull up the hood of my cloak, but I couldn't disguise my build. Wrong! You could disguise your build. You could do that. They have a bunch of extra clothes. You could do plenty to disguise your build, your face. You cut your hair. I'm just gonna keep saying it. The only reason that we're not doing that is because you want to remain hot and you want to be sexy and you don't want to look like a boy. You don't actually want to disguise yourself. And there's no convenient way to get around that. So you're just like, oh, can't do it. So then while she's alone in her room, because apparently she'd get a reputation if a woman undisguised shared a room with a bunch of men. Of course, who gets into her room? The bearded guy. Be nice, little bird, or I'll slit your throat and leave you to drown in your own blood. She cuts him, he fights her. She uses her magic to stop time. Magic, huh? You'll make me a rich man, you little bitch. She gets him with the knife again, then her room is full of the, merry men, the 7 mercenaries, it's 5 mercenaries. And even though she has thrown a guy in a river, killed another guy, and just cut this guy with a knife, they treat her like a little bird. Don't look over there. Come with me, Priska. She already killed someone. Why is she acting like she's brand new at this? As soon as they walk in the room, she's like, oh, I couldn't possibly. I'm just a dainty little lady who's killed 2 men already. What? Lauren's like, you don't need to talk about it. He wasn't looking at me like I was a victim. That made me steadier. This book talks about being a victim too many times for me to be anything but uncomfortable. The way that it's discussed, I don't like it. I think it's weird. I had the same problem when I read J.M. Bucklebeek's books. She talks about victim mentality in those, and I think that that's coming through in here, and I don't like it. I don't like that. Empowerment is great, but talking in the derogatory about people being victims of things is a weird take that I don't like or appreciate. For instance, I am a sexual assault victim. I can call myself that, and I don't want anybody to think that I'm being derogatory because it's not derogatory. It happened to me. Do I sometimes use the word survivor? Sure. But I don't buy that we have to avoid the word victim or that we have to be afraid of calling people victims of things. I don't like that. And this book does that in several different places. That makes me uncomfortable. Anyway, thank goodness that the man was there to give you a look, not even tell you, to give you a look to indicate how you should feel instead of, you having any agency at all. The guy gets ushered out of her room and they're like, are the authorities gonna get called? Do we need to be worried? Lorien says, an attempted murderer was felled by a tiny woman. Everyone in this inn just watched him stumble away. No one will be summoning the authorities tonight. I ignored the tiny woman part. That makes one of us. That's stupid. There's no reason why the authorities wouldn't get called. This is so convenient. The only reason that authorities are not going to get called is because we have to have a way for her to sleep in the same room as him. You'll sleep in here tonight. I couldn't see exactly where I could sleep in the room. Who would have known this group of hard-faced, tough mercenaries had mother hen tendencies? Oh, yep, who knew? Isn't one of them a father? So, okay. Despite the fact that I was now surrounded by mercenaries, I felt strangely safe. Oh, good. Are we done with the contrived revenge plot against them now, or... Okay. Randomly, she thinks about how the fact that she hasn't mourned yet. She basically abandoned her brother, she abandoned her town, her friend, and her mom is probably dead. I feel like this book wasn't sure if they were going to kill the mom off or not until later, and then definitely did, but off page. Anyway, if once I allowed myself to mourn, I cracked open the stone wall I'd erected between myself and the reality I'd tried so hard to ignore. Yeah, that seems like a totally normal human thing to say. So she thinks about the village I'd never seen again, Tibris either dead or running for his life, her brother, for my mother who was gone from this world. She has no idea if that's true or not. She didn't see her mom get killed. I don't know why she was so sure about that. I'd forced myself not to think of her, attempted to focus on the fact that she'd kidnapped me and then lied my whole life. No, that's a lie. You have not even once thought about the fact that she kidnapped you or wondered who your real family is. You can't lie to me, Priska. If the priestesses were right, Mama was now drowning over and over again in the waters of Huber because she'd helped me hide from the king's guards because she'd protected me. I don't know what the waters of Huber are. I'm 99% sure it never gets brought up again. Lorien throws an arm over her and says, figured you'd be going over it in your head. He said, gruffy, grabbing a pillow. Sleep, savage woman, I'll keep you safe. He calls her savage woman and wildcat throughout this book from here on out. So that's something that happens. The next morning, the bearded giant who tried to kill me was hanging from a hook dead. Great. He had gotten the key to her room from the innkeeper. I guess he stole it or something. And the way that he died was his hands were no longer attached to his body. I wasn't sure exactly when Lorien had killed him. He would have done it himself rather than sending one of the others. I don't know how you would know that. Don't you hate that guy and vice versa? Sometimes when I looked at Lorien, I didn't recognize him. Yeah, that's because he's a whole stranger. Yep. That tracks. You shouldn't recognize him at all. He's a whole stranger. You've known him for 2 days. The man in my dreams had been approachable, like a sated tiger. What are you talking about? What conversations did you have with the man in your dreams? You have never said. The Lorien I'd first met had been all languid amusement and put upon boredom. This Lorien looked wicked and wild, his eyes glowing. Yeah, he's still a stranger. It doesn't matter what, all of those versions of him are strangers to you because you have literally known him for 2 days. We needed to leave before someone decided to call the authorities. Yes, it actually doesn't make sense that Lorien or any of the rest of them would put themselves in the position where they didn't kill him and then immediately get all of them to leave. We just needed this moment, I guess, where he's hanging and it's all dramatic. I tensed as Lorien reached for my waist and that muscle ticked in his jaw again. Of course it did. You think I'm going to hurt you? No. I don't know why you think that. He wouldn't hurt you. He left you on a riverbank and that was 3 days ago. What do you mean? When did things change? But apparently they got her a couple of dresses, a tunic, and some breeches from the market. They didn't get her anything to, disguise herself, which would be helpful, but sure, that's fine. So then they keep on traveling. It says he vibrated with rancor all day and neither of us had said a word to each other. Oh, okay. We're back to that. Great. Last night was the second throat you've slit within the past few days, sweetheart, not to mention the guard you pushed off that bridge. Oh, so then you guys do understand that she has done murder and does not need to be coddled about it. Is that's not how you treated her right after you saw her in the room with the... Okay, never mind. Of all of us, you've been the most murderous lately. Perhaps you should think twice before judging us as savages. The word savage gets thrown around way too often in this book. I don't think we need to use that word, period, but... in this book, it's getting a little abundant, and I would like it to stop. Not counting the way I'd contributed to the bearded giant's death, I'd killed 2 other men since I left my village. I'd even used the knife I'd stolen from the hunter to stab the bearded giant. I want to be alone, she said, but he won't let her think of things in her way. She has to think about stuff his way, because he's dominant, I guess. He snagged my wrist and hauled me back down. I hated him. That man deserved to die, he said. The way Lorien acted sometimes, it was as if he'd forgotten his humanity. Leaving a weaponless woman to die was a good example. He made life and death decisions so easily, always from a place of logic, depending on if it would help him with whatever task he was being paid to complete. Wow, that was a lot of words. The only reason I could see for him to kill Beard, especially so violently, wasn't from logic at all. Yes, that doesn't make sense. You're right. But pointing it out doesn't make it better. Pointing it out just means that you and I are on the same page. And now it's time for you to make sense of that. And instead we're just that's a thing that's weird, isn't it? Yeah, can you unweird it for me or no? Okay. You're a survivor. Oh, here we go. Here's that victim versus survivor conversation again. It's not fair for me to tell you to fight as if your life depends on it and then verbally flay you for it when you do. You're right. That is not fair. Also, she can call herself whatever she wants. Victim, survivor, you can call yourself whatever you want. So she talks about how she's being awakened from dreams every night when she goes to sleep about the murders, which is news to me. I've never heard about this before. You become too numb to it. It's an animal instinct. Either they die or you die. I don't want it to become easy. I don't want to become a monster. And unsaid, she leaves off the part where she's a monster like you because she thinks that he's monstrous. Then she feels bad because her brother, Tibris, is, somewhere and she feels how's he going to forgive me? Our mom's dead. It's all my fault because I used my power. And then he tells her, don't survive for anyone else, survive for yourself, which is supposed to be empowering. But he literally tells her what to do all the time. I don't buy it. Survive because you deserve to survive. Had his eyes just dropped to my lips? Oh, probably. So he tries to teach her again to use her power. You need to feel fear in order to use your power. Visualize the man who tried to kill you. And when it doesn't work, he says, you're not trying. I am. I didn't want to do this, he said. And he pulls out the rope that the bearded guy tried to kill her with to try to scare her into using her power. Great.
Okay, round boy. Let's dance.
Show me you can use your power, Wildcat. Wildcats everywhere. Raise your hands up in the air. He moves so fucking fast. Screaming, I turn towards the clearing. Rythos and Marth appear to my left, hands on their weapons. They're gonna hurt her if she doesn't use her Time magic? Okay.
Maybe there's something to that wimpy teamwork garbage of yours after all.
The feel of the rope on the side of my throat was what did it. My terror was married to fury in a way I had never felt before, and I could feel my power coiled within me. This time I memorized the feeling. So she pauses time, grabs the rope from him, throws it in the river. I think she kicked him, unpauses time, tells him, keep away from me, I'm leaving. And one of the guys says, Marth says, if you try to leave, he'll just drag you back. You made a bargain. We shift into Lorian's POV. Yay, glorious day. It wasn't that I enjoyed terrifying women, but usually it wouldn't occur to me to want to soothe one. Oh, goodness. This asshole feels something because of this woman. Yay. Oh my gosh, she made him feel a new emotion. That's so great. For some unknown reason, I'd felt ... guilt. Oh, that's new. It's new for you, huh? When Priska's eyes had turned stark with horror. And one of the dudes, I think Rythos, I don't know, it doesn't matter. They're all the same to me. You should be careful with that one. Rage can simmer for years before it explodes into vengeance. As you know, she could have killed you in that moment when she controlled time. And he's like, yeah, but all I felt was a sense of pride. I'm like, oh my God, you pushed her into doing things outside of her comfort zone and now you feel prideful about her doing it. That's so great. Wow, romance is alive, folks. It's alive. Priska rode with Rythos, allowing me to focus on my upcoming meeting and not the curvy ass she insisted on rubbing against me each time she shifted uncomfortably in the saddle. Great. More stuff I don't care about. You know what would be great at this point? Just throwing this out here. A plot. A plot would be great, wouldn't it? Oh, how that would, I'm longing for it. I'd paid the price for helping her with her magic. My balls still ached enough, she did kick him, that I was grinding my teeth with every movement. So he says to her, you can thank me for my lesson whenever you're ready. Oh, I'll teach you a lesson. Her power presented us with a unique opportunity. I refuse to let me pass me by. Oh, we're gonna talk about being a victim again. Are you having fun? Are you having fun with that? Me too. The thought of Priska being a victim in this world was quite simply intolerable, especially considering she carried the potential to never be a victim again. Stop it! Stop doing that. Stop demonizing the word victim for no reason other than you think it sounds better to be a survivor. I hate this theme. It's so stupid. Just let people call themselves what they want to be called. It's like you're not good enough unless the things that have been done to you have empowered you. And I am good enough. Some days I let it drag me down. Other days I pick myself up. I am human and worthy no matter which day I'm on. I hate this theme. You're not a victim, you're a survivor. Shut the fuck up. I can be both. Thank you. That's enough. This was part of why this book got 1 star. I fucking hated that. And it's not even the last time we're gonna bring it up. We're gonna keep bringing it up. It's a shallow, worthless theme that does nothing for anybody who has ever survived or been victimized by anything. She finds out that Rythos, one of the men they're traveling with, has the power to make you like him. And he's like, well, I've never used my power on you. She falls asleep, but she wakes up panting, and he thinks to himself, I have the strangest urge to pull her close to soothe her. And before she falls back asleep, she says, I used to see you in my dreams. Now all I see is the men I've killed. He asks, what? And she falls back asleep. We never talk about this again. We have no idea why she sees him in her dreams. I assume that the answer is boring. We change back to her POV. The rest of the guys are gonna go off for a super secret meeting that she's not invited to, and she's supposed to be being babysat by Gallon, one of the guys. And she's like, it's not smart to split up. And they say, well, if you're tortured, it's so you can't talk about what we're doing, which I don't know why she needed that explained to her. That seems like common sense, but okay. During his little game with the rope, I'd finally understood where my power lived, and I'd practice with it over and over while we rode today, only able to achieve a couple of seconds at best while I focused on the terror I'd felt over and over since I'd fled my village. So she uses her power, somehow stops time enough to follow them. I guess they weren't that far away. She climbs up a trail and watches them and sees that the rest of them are meeting with Faye. Lorian gets a glass vial from one of them, and she's like, well, the whole point of being a mercenary was doing not very nice things. Not very nice, hyphenated. For the kind of people willing to pay in gold. Oh my God. Something broke in me at the thought of them working with the Fae, the very creatures who terrorized our kingdom for so many centuries, the reason our king had to bargain with the gods in the first place. Did you forget that that was a part of this book? Me too. She thinks about the fact that she had an adopted dad. She didn't know that she, had been kidnapped, but she had an adopted dad who had, I don't even remember the fucking power that he had, but her brother has the power to heal, and he was trying to heal their dad, but because he was underpowered due to only a little bit of their power gets given back to them, he didn't have enough power to save their dad in that haunts her brother, I guess. We all knew the gods kept the majority of the power. Without Tiburce's sacrifice, would our father still be alive? Probably. But then again, you know, like to what degree can he heal? Because healing, the thing about if you're writing magic is you always have to kind of know, like, what are the limits of this? Because if somebody can heal anything and everyone all the time without limits, there's really like no stakes there. There has to be like a balance. So she's annoyed that they've been dealing with the Fae without telling her. This whole time, Lorien had kept the upper hand in all our negotiations. Well, that's probably because he knows more than you about literally everything, because you're very stupid. He knew I still had my power, that the king's guards were hunting me, and that I haven't seen 25 winters, which is when they get their power back. So she's like, oh, this is information. I wonder if it's useful. Yeah, no shit. The Fae. I didn't know how they'd managed to get into our borders, but they were a threat to everyone in this kingdom. Then Lorien sees her, takes one look at her, and snarls, his gaze taking in the dirt on my knees and the scraped hands I tucked behind my back. He obviously knew I'd been up to something.
Last picnic I let you talk me into.
Up to something? What else could you have been up to? The thing they told you not to do was to be around them so that if you got tortured, you couldn't say what they had been doing. What else is there? Oh my God. Next chapter, she's thinking about her mom again. Mama said she'd kidnapped me from my real parents. They probably assumed I was dead all this time. Probably. I wish you'd, try to think about them. Where did I come from? Did they also have their powers? Doesn't think about, logical questions. They're staying at another inn. Another one. Except this time when they go to the inn, they say that she's Lorien's wife. Except they're so stupid that they didn't set her up for success in this. She doesn't have a blue mark, so she's not old enough to get married because you have to be 25 and have, your magic return to you to get married. And you also have to have a bracelet showing that you're married. She has neither of those things. They just walked her at these smart guys who are supposed to be so much smarter than her were like, this is my wife, with no indication that she's anybody's wife. What do you mean? And of course, this just sets them up for failure. And instead, she's focusing on the fact that she doesn't want to look like she's married to Lorien. I'd prefer that no one thought I was stupid enough to marry a cold-hearted brute like yourself. I miss the company of other women so much sometimes. It's only been like 2 weeks. Max. It's been like a week. Maximum. Miss my best friend even more. What would Asinia think of me now? Oh yeah, she had a best friend named Asinia. I don't know anything about her up to this point, by the way. If not for the fact that I was one of the corrupt, she likely would find the fact that I was traveling alone with 5 men hilarious and titillating. I do not care. So instead of keeping her mouth shut and not doing anything to attract attention, because she just was told in the last village at the last inn that she would get a reputation, like that meant something to them then, now she just tells a girl who's flirting with these men that they are all hers, that all 5 of them are her boyfriends, essentially. And Lorien's like, haha, my wife has a filthy mouth. And then she thinks back to when she was a kid and she said, I'm going to get married one day right here in the village. Which village? Didn't you say that she moved around several fucking times? Okay. And her mom, again, who was a seer, said, no, you won't, Priska. Such things are not for you. And her dad had been like, bruh. He didn't say bruh. And her mom was like, no, she needs to learn now better than to be disappointed later. And she had continued to remind her throughout her life that such things were not for her. The more I was told something wasn't for me, the more I wanted it. We're told things about her that never come up again. I don't remember her ever being told, oh, you can't have this thing and going after it. Like, that's not like a regularly occurring thing that Priska does. She takes a bath and then Lorien walks into their room and he's like, oh, you're taking a bath. I'm not gonna waste the hot water. And she's like, okay, well, I'll leave. And he's like, you can't go anywhere alone. Close your eyes if the sight of a male body offends a lady as meek and modest as yourself. And she thinks the thought of the river where he abandoned her should have dampened the strange warm feeling in my stomach, but Lorien's pants dropped to the floor and I sucked in a breath. He slowly turned his head and our eyes met. His smile was very male. Oh, I didn't realize that smiles could be male. What's mine? Is it female or not? And very smug. So she would think about the fact that this man abandoned her at a river and she swore revenge, but his pants dropped to the floor and he had a male, not female smile. So
Where's that blasted salami? I can smell it.
what's a girl to do? It wasn't fair that he was so annoying and yet so fucking perfect. The thought of him smelling like vanilla was enough to make me smirk. He uses vanilla soap. And I'm just wondering, why? That's interesting. No, elaborate. Why is it funny that a man would smell like vanilla? No, go on. Tell me why it's funny that a man smelling like vanilla, we all know that men can't smell like vanilla. If Carlos smelled like vanilla, I would eat him up. He ran his hands over his body roughly until I practically itched to push those hands away and caress every inch of him. He left you to die and you swore revenge. Remember that? I remember. You made me listen to it. twice. I didn't understand how I could loathe someone on such a deep level and then fantasize about his body this way. I mean, I do. It's just that I have never sworn to kill somebody who left me to die next to a river. So I guess I'm built different. Even his cock was disgustingly perfect, long and thick and smooth, and stop staring at his cock. Wish you would. I somehow managed to drift off. Even though she was she somehow managed to fall asleep. And then he gets into bed. She's jolted awake. I could feel his gaze on me and I rolled over. His green eyes shone like a cat's in the dim light. He leaned closer. His eyes were so dark they appeared black. I breathed him in. All vanilla scent of him? Oh no, that must be terrible for you. His gaze dropped my lips and every muscle in my body went weak. My core clenched. Heat pooled in my stomach, but I had to know. Why are you working with the Fae? He rolled over and went to sleep. They wake up in the morning and the bells are ringing. It's a taking ceremony, which means that power is going to be taken from somebody who was recently born. Everyone had to attend gifting and taking ceremonies unless they had a written exception. I guess that's a typo. Anyway, they have to go for some reason. They can't sneak out even though they are not from this town and there's no register of them being forced here. And the king's guards are apparently looking for her specifically, and yet they haven't given her a disguise yet. So they have to go because of her little joke last night. They know that a woman is traveling with 5 men. I guess we'll go to the taking and we'll be ready to leave as soon as it's done. And Lorian's like, I won't let them hurt you. You do not have the luxury of falling apart. Do you understand me? She's like, well, I could use my magic to sneak past the innkeeper. And Lorian's like, no, the innkeeper is a null. What's a null? Someone who repels magic. It's unlikely your magic will work on him, and if it did, it would cost you so much power you'd be useless for the rest of the day. How does Lorian know all of these things and she doesn't? Where is he from that he would know all of these things and she doesn't? How does he know how to train her in her power? How does he know what a null is and she has never heard of such a thing despite growing up in multiple villages, not just one? These are questions that she should be reasonably asking herself, if not him or his friend. Instead, we just don't ask because the surprise is who is Lorian at the end, and any sort of like lead up to that would ruin the surprise, I guess, or we could just write better and have a better surprise. So she's like, my only choice is to rely on Lorian and the others, and they surround her to protect her. So there's an assessor there, and a little baby girl is the subject of the taking ceremony. So then we get a history lesson at like, what are we, like 30% in this book at now? And we get a history lesson a la the first chapter of the Hunger Games. I'm pretty sure this is like almost beat for beat how it's like, well, I practically memorized the history, but I listened to them tell me it again. I practically memorized the story of our history, but as always, I focused clearly, hoping for some hint about why I still had my power. Centuries ago, our people went to war with the Fae. Not content with their incredible power, indescribable wealth, and fertile lands, the Fae decided they wanted more. They wanted humans. They wanted women to be their brides and make up for their low fertility. They wanted human servants to manage their households and work in their mines. They wanted more power, more wealth, more. Finally, the king's great-great-grandfather, a strong, wise king called Regner, said enough. He was tired of his people being preyed upon, tired of the Fae taking whatever they wanted, and so they went to war. The Fae may have been outnumbered by us, but they had the kind of power that could flood valleys, the kind of power that could burn entire cities to the ground. Our people had Fae iron, and they used it to fight back however they could. I don't even remember Fae iron being mentioned until this point. Many of those prayers had involved thanking the gods for Risplite, the strange mineral they'd gifted us. When added to iron while it was in the furnace, it turned previously normal iron into a true weapon against the Fae. Again, we are learning this at 30% into this book. Slaughter continued for weeks and then months. King Regner went to the gods and begged them to intervene. If they helped us defeat the Fae, we would give the gods back our power while it was and potent, because the power would grow as it aged and the gods could sip on it, staying strong themselves in a time where few were worshipping as they should. For the gods had been losing power themselves. As fewer people prayed to them, as fewer people sacrificed it to the deities. So the bargain was struck, and then on God's Day, to respect the sacrifice our people made, they celebrate God's Day. They were willing to give up their power to lose their magic until they reached maturity at the age of 25 winters. So the gods accepted the sacrifice and helped King Regner years ago drive the Fae back beyond their borders, and now that sacrifice protects those borders from the monsters who would avenge their fallen friends and family members. So the priestess says, our power will always belong to the gods from whom it came. They use these stones and they like press it to the babies, and then the power gets sucked into the stone, and those stones go off to who knows where. It turns out that they go off to the king. We get a little bit of information about the gods at this point that never comes up again. Farik was the god of knowledge, Tronin the god of strength, and Bredis the god of protection. So the baby's magic gets sucked into the Osciartus stone, Ocartus, Osciartus, I don't know. Anyway, ceremony over, and they find out that her face, much like Flynn Rider, is on, wanted posters. Someone had drawn my likeness and described my features. You know what would fix this? Friend, listen to me. Dress up like a boy. Dress up like a boy. Dress up like a boy. Shave your head, wear an eye patch, dress up like a boy. Pass yourself off as one of their little brothers, not their wife, with no indicators that you are a wife. But it doesn't end there, because beneath the picture of her were the names of the corrupt who had been taken to the city, and one of them is Asinia. Did you forget who Asinia was? Me too. It's her best friend. Her best friend was also one of the corrupt. She has power. She'd been in hiding this whole time, and she had never known. My heart was frozen. It was stuck to the walls of my chest and my lungs, all of it just a big clump of ice. Man, when you put this writing next to the writing of The River Has Roots, which I've been reading, what a stark contrast, I tell you what. So Lorien's like, you can mourn later, you need to use your power. You need to stop being a scared little mouse and actually reveal the woman I believe you are. Prove me wrong. We don't have time for your insecurity and self-doubt. And she's like, I hate you. He says to her, either you freeze those guards long enough for us to get past them, or we all die here. Rythos goes first, and his death is the hardest. I don't know why. The king has been looking for him for some time. Again, I don't know why, and she doesn't fucking ask. So she freezes time, and her power is taking so much out of her that blood is dripping from her nose, and she actually loses her vision for, temporarily. Flame out, that shouldn't be happening. You have so much more power than you're using. So she thinks, well, I did that, and if I can do that, then I can get to the city gates, and from there, I could find a way to get to the dungeon and free my best friend, Asinia. When Papa died, I'd lay next to him for hours. When his body was taken away, I'd crawled into my bed and stayed there for days, unable to move. That hole had deepened with the realization that my mother was dead, and now, knowing Asinia would die on God's day, all because of me. So apparently, they keep the corrupt and only burn them on God's day. And if you were unlucky enough to be arrested just days after the prison was emptied, or on God's day in the new year, you'd have an entire year to rot in the king's dungeon and picture yourself burning. They keep people with power in prison for a year, but they killed her mom outright, she assumes, for knowing about her, and have powered people never use their power to escape. It says that they use iron to keep them sickly, but there's really never ever been an uprising until this idiot helps them. Okay. And it turns out that he forced her to do all that, to use her power until she burned out, even though he knew another way out of the village, all because you weren't progressing with your power. I hope you remember how it felt, because we're going to practice all night until you can be trusted tomorrow to use your power. So he's a really manipulative asshole, and I don't think that it's hot, and I don't think that it's empowering. He's like, yeah, I did that to you, but it's because you're not a victim, you're a survivor. Shut up, you're awful. This isn't sexy. I hope this dude dies by the end. He deserves it. And it's not morally gray. It's just him being abusive. That's just abusive. But don't worry, because it's funny that he smells like vanilla, because he's a man. And then she thinks after the fact, she talks to the other guy, Rythos, and she's like, you were a part of it. You knew that we could have gotten out a different way. He may have asked me to play up my fear for you. And she says, you have magic. You could have befriended those guards and they would have allowed us out of the town. And I'm like, yeah, why did you forget about that? Why and how did you forget that he has the power to make people like him? Conveniently, you forgot about that. Okay, I guess. In the next chapter, Lorien finally decides to give her some information. Every time a mother hands over her child's precious gift, Sabium, the current king, takes most of it for himself. The gods play no part in your people's suffering. What need do they have for more power? She says, well, he uses the magic to protect our borders. Yes, but he still gives power to his counselors to keep them loyal. He gives it to the priestesses to ensure they continue the takings. He gives it to the guards. They can hunt those who he considers corrupt, and he keeps much of it himself. Now, I don't understand how he gives it to the guards to help them hunt. Does he only employ certain people with certain powers as guards? And if so, how is he ensuring that, I guess, are they only getting that job when they're 25 and they have to prove that they have, I don't know. I don't understand that. I also don't really understand how you become a priestess, whatever. How do I still have my power then? How does Asinia? Eons ago, the world was divided into 4 kingdoms, 2 human kingdoms called Eprotha and Gramalia, the Fey kingdom in the south, and to the west, across the sleeping sea, was a kingdom filled with people who had once been wholly Fae, but had split from their people during the Long War. They became hybrids, mating with humans and producing offspring with unique powers of their own. So we have human, Fae, and hybrid. The hybrid kingdom was on the barren continent? There was a reason no one traveled to the barren continent. Nothing grew there, and any ships that attempted the journey never returned. The continent was never barren. No, the hybrid kingdom was beautiful. When the hybrid kingdom was invaded, hundreds of thousands died. Those who lived made it to cities and villages on this continent, and they've remained hidden ever since. How come the hybrids were not discovered during the taking? Your power does not belong to this kingdom. The Oshiarda stones may take all of human magic, but that's not how they work for hybrids. Why? She says. Because you're more powerful than humans and your magic is very different. At a hybrid taking ceremony, the magic is taken, the stone glows, and the priestesses warble their prayers, but the seed of hybrid power remains. And then that seed of hybrid power grows over time and with use, unlike the magic that is in humans, which can be taken and then given back, I guess. And so then he refuses to answer any more questions and tells her randomly that if she wants to learn more about the history of the lands and the king, he tells her, see if you can find a Narmanoi. Their power is the power of knowledge. Unlike Marth, who can look back a few days, perhaps a few years if he's at full strength, Narmanoi can look back centuries if they choose, and they are unable to lie, not about the past. The king has hunted them all these years, only a few of them remain. Then someone is caught spying on them, and it's her brother, Tibris. Friend of yours, Wildcat? Lorien slowly stood. He moved like a predatory cat. Oh, the guy who just said Wildcat also moves like a predatory cat. Oh, a lover come to rescue you from our embrace? No, you idiot. This is my brother. He lets her know that their mom is in fact dead, which, was anticlimactic. She's like, how did you find me? And he says, I heard a barmaid laughing about a woman who'd been traveling with 5 men, servicing them all. And some of the stuff that he said that she overheard led him right to her, I guess. It's definitely not what it sounds like. He tells her that in the village, they started testing on all of their friends and neighbors. The king's assessor performed testings. They were interrogating them, and Tibris is like, we should go. She says, no, I made a bargain with these dudes. I have to get them into the village. I have to use my power. And she's like, will you come with me? Will you help me? And he's like, oh, by the way, I'm a rebel. A rebel, my kind-hearted healer brother. Now that explained how he'd managed to stay on the run long enough to find me. It does? Oh, those contacts of his weren't just friends he'd trained with. I've known you were a hybrid for years. I've been planning your escape. You were making plans that could have given me hope. I didn't know you were struggling. And I don't think you should tell your mercenary friends what we were planning. Lorien's like, oh, I'm glad you found your brother. You'll be able to start a new life together. And she is not telling Lorien that she has plans to get Asinia out of the jail. She's just like, yeah, we'll go to the village. And then from there, me and my brother will get out. We'll find a ship and we'll get the fuck out of here. So then at the gates, she pauses time and some dude looks at her while time is paused. He's immune to this. He looks at her and he winks at her. And this has the most boring payoff you will ever believe. I was like, oh, maybe something cool. No, it's stupid. It turns out it's just her cousin, and you find this out at the end. We don't even talk to him. It's just that they're related, so it doesn't work on him. We're like 50% of the way through this book. This just happened, and we don't hear about it until the end. And we don't even talk, it wasn't even purposeful. There was no reason for it to be there. Anyway, so she gets them into the castle.
With a mouth like yours, we should have just tried to sneak in here with a marching band.
Which I don't even understand at this point why they needed to sneak into the castle, to be honest with you, and why this was their best plan, and how he's like, always got a plan, but he didn't have a different plan to get them into the city before she randomly came along. It would have made more sense if she was working with the resistance and he had found out that there was somebody with the power to stop time, and he had sought her out, and then maybe she had sought him out for a different reason, and they mutually came to a bargain, and they couldn't stand each other's methods, but in the end they had the same goal, and eventually they form a sense of well, I don't really agree with your methods and vice versa, but we can come to a common understanding. But instead it's just he told me that I'm not a victim, I'm a survivor, and he left me on the beach and he had a different plan, which was I don't know what, but then as soon as he found out I had a power, he needed me. I don't get it. Anyway, when they split up, he makes out with her and he says, in another life, I sucked in a shaky breath. I felt it too, that maybe in another life we were meant to be different people and we would have been those people together. Wow, great. I sighed against his mouth and his tongue slipped between my lips to tangle with mine. This is happening in front of her brother. Mortifying. This was not at all like kissing the village boys. Oh, good. We're doing the thing where he's not like other dudes I've kissed / blah, blah, blah. My usually mild-mannered brother was yelling all kinds of threats, Brythos and Marth holding him back. Over a kiss? So in the city, she learns that the rich people are able to use magic for things like carriages that move on their own. Some carriages have horses and then others are utilized with the stolen magic. The people in the city would walk around using so much magic, it was clear they had received much, much more back than anyone living in the northern villages. Now, I don't really understand if it's like people are able to do this or if it's like the stones, the Oshartis stones are used for this. I have no idea how this magic works. So they go see her brother's friend Vicer, who is part of the rebel group, and he's running a rebel group out of an old orphanage in this city. There's like all of these random people that show up at this point that are absolutely meaningless to the story, and they all just serve to do what a lot of these books that I've been reading lately do, which is like, here's another person to reinforce how good and great our main character is. And if anybody's mean to our main character, who's the best person ever, it's because they're a bad person, especially other girls who are mean. So Vicer gets her over to go see what are they called? Noremini, sea anemone? I don't know. One of those seers who can see into the past, not see the future like her mom did, but see into the past, who tells her the gods are very interested in what you do next. She asks about her birth parents, and the seer says, you were just 3 winters old. If you'd been in your bed that night, you would have died. The man you called your papa did everything he could to take those memories from you, but eventually you will begin to remember. Where are my birth parents now? I can't see that. I can only see what has been. One day soon, you will have to make a choice. Be a torch for just one soul in the dark, or burn like the sun for all of them, which is foreshadowing that, you know, soon she'll have to choose between just saving Acinia and saving all of the people in prison. I ran out of time filming this yesterday because, well, frankly, I had a bunch of other work things come up. If you're watching in real time, as you know, my video got taken down. I'm still in the middle of that right now, and people are like, so are you gonna put it back up? And I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Being a content creator is so wackadoodle sometimes. Anyway, let's create some more content. Let's finish this. We're about 60% of the way through this, so let's get her done. Oh no. Let's not say that again. So her brother's friend Vicer, who runs the rebellion, I guess, has contacts in the castle that get her fake papers, which is an entire plot convenience. And it tries to make it sound like, wow, this plot convenience is definitely a plot convenience, but like, just accept it, okay? We have someone with replication magic. I'd heard of replication magic even in my small village. Not only was it incredibly rare and therefore valuable, but those with the power of replication were almost always taken to the city to work for the king. I don't really understand like what the extent of replication magic is, and neither does the main character, and the book's not going to answer it. This is one of those parts where the main character is asking the questions so that you don't think that it's wrong to ask questions, but like, the main character asking the questions is not a substitute for answering those questions. You do actually need to answer those questions, not just be like, yeah, the main character agrees. It's a mystery. It shouldn't be a mystery to you. Such magic would be incredibly useful. Weapons, food, clothes. Where did that power end? I don't know. I'd love if you told me. Her brother realizes that her dad, who is dead, must have been erasing his memory constantly to account for the fact that he was alive before and knew that she was not like his, you know, like real biological sister, and they must have kidnapped her. So their dad, with memory magic, must have been working on Tibris constantly. And that implies that it has to like, you have to keep re-upping the magic in order for their memories to not revert back to normal. That's what I think this is implying. So shouldn't he have been starting to have memories of her not being a part of their family previously, since their dad has been dead a while? Who's to say? Not the book. I'm sure it'll question it and then not answer it. We learned that Vicer and this lady that's in the rebellion, her daughter was in the rebellion, and Vicer used to work for the king's guard, I guess, and then he fell in love with this woman's daughter, and then one day their house got raided because she was a hybrid, and so she got taken and executed, and that's what turned him into a rebel. And her mom works for Vicer now. I don't know if I was supposed to care about this, but I can confirm that I do not. There's a ceremony with one of the assessors, the king's assessors, who like assess if somebody has magic or not, which I don't know why we need assessors and priestesses, but all right. I still don't know how you are born a priestess. I don't know what kind of magic you need to have in order to become a priestess. I have no fucking clue. Anyway, the assessor that she sees in the capital, she realizes she's seen him before in her village. Which village? Because again, she moved around a lot as a kid. I don't know. But she remembers that this same priestess caught a kid using magic in her town. And so this like kid's family gets slaughtered, and her mom made her watch all this happen. And it says, had my mother allowed that family to die so I would be forever haunted by the knowledge of what would happen if I were caught? And I'm like, I guess, but I don't really know why your mom didn't just move again, since, you know, you guys did that a lot. We then get introduced to, in succession, a bunch of young women, and most of them, to one degree or another, are annoyed by her. One of them is Willa, and it's like, why does she look like she wants to slit my throat? And she's told, oh, don't worry, she hates everyone. We're still at the ceremony. She looks at the assessor, the one who killed the kid that she knew as a child in the village, or one of the villages, I don't fucking know, that she lived in. So she looks at this assessor, and it says, I mouthed the prayers and made my own vow. Before I left this castle, whether it was out the front gates, through the tunnel in the dungeon, or through that same tunnel to the stake, the king's assessor would be dead. Now, bitch, I have heard you make such plans before. You wanted revenge on those men who left you by the river, and now you're planning to f*** one of them. So are you also gonna f*** the assessor? Who's to say? Who's to say? You don't seem like you have good follow through, is all I'm saying. You make a lot of empty threats. So there is a tunnel, of course there is, to and from the dungeon that they are planning to use in order to get her friend Asinia out. But Vicer, the leader of the rebellion, also wants to get one of his guys out of the dungeon. We change to Lorian's POV. Yay! He is also in the capital city, and he's been writing letters to his mysterious brother who we never see on page. And this whole time he's been writing letters to his brother. Also in the beginning of the book, he goes and sees some witches about stones or some shit. It doesn't really matter. The point is, he talks in letter form to his brother about the king of whatever the fuck country we're in. It doesn't even matter. It says that he plans to hunt with the king. The text makes you think that he's disguised as the Grimalian prince. I'll meet him to hunt for a few beasts, let him best me with his magic arrows, then tell him I've rethought Grimalia's insistence on staying out of his little issue with the Fae. As far as the king was concerned, I'd taken the first step, tucking my tail between my legs and agreeing to meet in his kingdom. King Sabian's hunting cabin was close to the town where I had forced Priska, Everything we had done so far, all our plans, years of waiting, and each endless minute of travel, all of it had led to this. I would control my temper, curb my instincts, and secure my invite to the castle. And then Sabian would pay! Except he doesn't have a plan to make Sabian pay. I have no idea what that plan was. It never came to fruition. We change back to Priska's POV. Her brother and her have started working in the castles so that they can try to get information to try to figure out a way to get Asinia and Vicer's man out of the dungeon. That's a little bit overcomplicated, but okay. They have, identifying papers that are, faked thanks to the rebellion and their replication magic. So her brother figures out where the entrance to the dungeon is, but the king is traveling overnight for, the hunting party with guess who? And her brother's going to be sent as part of the entourage, so she's going to have to go alone. She gets into the entrance to the dungeon by herself, and she does in fact find her friend Asinia. Did you forget that this is about her friend Asinia? Me too. Now Asinia is curled up in a ball on the floor. She doesn't look so hot. She is withering away slowly. And someone in the cell next to her, of course, directly in the cell next to her, says she's not going to last. But perhaps she will with a friend as fierce as you. He tells her that the guards slowly poison all of them. And he's like, well, I built up a tolerance to the poison. She asks her his name, and he says, my name is Demos, and that so happens to be the guy that Vicer sent her in there to get. That was the man that Vicer ordered me to get out when I freed Asinia. Yes! How very convenient they were placed directly next to each other in the dungeon, full of 300 people, by the way. What are the odds? Somebody do the math. I can't. And it says for some unknown reason, he was spared during the last God's Day. So he is, set to be, wow, the convenience again. But the next God's Day is coming, and that's when they will all be sacrificed. All the hybrids will be sacrificed. Why can't any of you use your powers? Iron poisoning. We're not Fae. We can tolerate Fae iron. We can tolerate it, but the first thing they do when we're brought down here is slice out our skin and push the Fae iron into our wound. Then they crush it into dust and feed it to us in what little food they give us. For a moment, he seemed so familiar, I had to blink. Oh my god, what great foreshadowing that this is her biological brother. So she sees that they all have a wound on their arm, I believe, that has like Fae iron in it. She tells him, all right, don't eat, make sure Asinia doesn't eat. It was risky given that she didn't have any weight left on her to lose, which is weird because how does he have any weight left on him to lose because he's been in there longer? But I guess it's fine for Asinia to be, you know, close to starvation, but not a guy, I guess. I don't know. She has a spicy dream about Lorien, and then she wakes up and the other maids are like, who's Lorien? No matter how many times he'd featured in my dreams over the years. And one day I'd figure out exactly why that had happened. Yeah, we don't answer in this book, so. They'd never turned into those kinds of dreams. She realizes, you know, she's thinking about the fact that the king is doing all of this so that he can keep their magic. She's like, can I really free 2 of the prisoners and leave the rest to rot? I lifted up my head and caught sight of my reflection in one of the mirrors. Oh no, we're doing this. Apparently the queen liked to be able to gaze at herself whenever she wanted. I looked nothing like myself with my dark hair and brown eyes. Oh yeah, the resistance, the rebel group, changed her eye color and hair color. The eye color with a charm and the hair color with hair dye. Don't worry, she's still hot because we have to do like balls later, dancing balls later, also balls. Dancing balls are coming later, and if she had cut off all of her hair, she wouldn't be cute and pretty anymore. Fun, so fun, having a great time, y'all. We are sacrificing doing things that make sense for aesthetic purposes. Great. She's working adjacent to the queen, and you know, so she's like trying to figure out if she can use the queen to get any information on, you know, how to get prisoners out of prison, but like sneaky, just like, I don't know, somehow picking up on information, like overhearing stuff. I don't know. Who knows? I looked pale, shell-shocked, but my eyes burned with vengeance. I didn't know how, but I was going to free all the prisoners the king considered corrupt. Lorien's POV again. His brother in a letter says, congratulations on securing the invite to the castle. The temptation to let an arrow pierce Sabian's heart must have been great. One day we will have our revenge. We will watch Sabian's head roll free and know he has paid for everything he has done for our family, to our family. Why can't they just kill him? Not answered in this book. Assumedly, from the writing, there is not going to be a good answer. It's just, I don't know. Haven't figured that out yet. So I'll just say, I can't kill him yet. Even though there's no real good reason, it's just I need there to be stakes. I just don't need there to be answers to those stakes right now. Back in her POV, she's talking to Demos in the dungeon again, and her brother is taking out the iron from the wound in his arm so that Demos can get some of his strength back. She tells him it's okay if you need to cry. He says, first rule of being a prisoner, you cry and you're done. This was a man who refused to be victimized by life. No! Stop it. Stop it. I've had enough. I've had enough of that. I have had enough. He is literally a prisoner. It's okay if he cries. What you said was correct. It is okay to cry. It is okay to bawl your eyes out. It is okay to wallow. It is also okay to feel empowered and be like, I'm not going to cry. I refuse to cry. But we're not going to call it being victimized by life. It is okay to have a bad mental health day, especially if you are in prison. You're not done if you cry. You're not. Healthy management of emotions is a good thing, and that comes with understanding that you are going to have high emotional days and lower emotional days. Some days you'll be more angry, some days you'll be more sad. Crying is cathartic. It does not mean that you're being victimized by life. And even if you were, what of it? You are not less valuable for being a victim. You're literally in prison. She's ruminating in the next chapter on how she doesn't have a clear plan, but finally I received the answer I needed. One of Vicer's rebels had agreed to volunteer for my plan. So you had a plan, you just needed somebody to volunteer, and conveniently they did? Okay. And it's Willa, the girl who looked like she wanted to cut her throat earlier for no reason. The lamp she carried held a flame that burned purple at the center, a flame that only I could put out. Oh, good, it's the damask weed or whatever the fuck. Willa stumbled once, seemed to catch herself, then tripped over her feet once more, and she trips right onto the queen. So the queen's dress bursts into flames. I don't know why it burst into flames. What the fuck is the fabric made out of? So she stops time, gets the damask weed, mixes it with water so that they don't know that it was fey fire. And so I don't know why they couldn't just use real fire, and they mix it, and then she pours it out, and then it looks like she just stamps out the dress. This is so overly complicated for no fucking reason. So now Priska gets to take Willa's place. Now, why did Willa do this? Because the king took my brother from me without a thought. Now Willa's in prison. If his people found out just how many of us have magic and why, all of his lives would begin to fall apart. You're gonna free them. I know it. Promise me, Priska. Promise me you'll free them, and one day you'll come back and burn this fucking place to the ground. You're giving Priska a lot of credit, despite the fact that the text has not shown that she is capable of any of this. Because realistically, Priska could have been the one to accidentally set the dress on fire, and somebody else could have gone to the dungeon and saved everybody else. But I guess self-sacrifice just wasn't a thing that came to mind. Self-sacrifice isn't sexy. She finally sees Lorien at one of the social gatherings at the palace, since he's there as the Grimalian prince. And she sees him and she begs him to save Willa. He tries to figure out a way, but unfortunately, Willa gets executed either way. Then they're sneaking around the palace trying to, figure out a way for her to save all these fucking prisoners. And of course they're arguing now that they're back together. Yippee. Didn't no one ever teach you empathy? He chuckled. Empathy is useless in this world. Besides, my empathy won't make you strong. Wow, you actually don't need to make her stronger. That doesn't need to happen. I don't know why we think it does. They find some sort of room where there's a basket after basket of the Oshiartis stones. They have to hide because a high priestess comes in and takes one of the Oshiartis stones for herself. I don't remember this ever panning out to anything. Then we get something mentioned called a truth seeker, along with assessors, which I assume is a person who can figure out whether you're lying or not. Again, this is an issue I took with Powerless, where if you have people whose powers are figuring out whether or not somebody is lying, those people will get used by the people in power systematically to figure out if everybody is loyal or not, or hiding something or not. This is the entire premise of Truth Witch by Susan Dennard. Safia is a truth witch and gets used, I believe, by her uncle to tell if people are lying to him or not. So if you have truth seekers, like the way that Truth Witch is, the way that Powerless does, if you have people who can tell whether or not somebody is lying, then then why aren't we seeing them? They can't just get thrown in here. It doesn't make sense unless you explain why they are not getting used systematically to ask every single person all the time, are you lying or not? That would be the easiest way to tell if people are hybrids or if they have powers that they're hiding or not, is to just constantly send out truth seekers. But just like Powerless, this book throws this in here and then doesn't think about the complications of that. She starts to use her power on him, which annoys him. You dare use your power on me without permission? I suggest you get yourself back to your room, imposter prince. The king decides that he is going to call representatives from each town and village to the city to discuss the corrupt and ensure we are taking every possible step to remove their presence from our kingdom. This would actually be a great time for the truth seekers to enter the chat. They will begin arriving 4 days from now, and we will have a welcome ball to mark the occasion. Oh good, another ball. Perfect. Some of them will also likely be invited to stay for the God's Day ball 2 weeks later. She realizes that the guy from her village is going to be there representing her village, and she's like, what if my different eyes and hair weren't enough? How would I ensure they didn't recognize me? I needed to stay far away from the representatives. No shit. You know what would have helped with this? Is passing yourself off as a boy. Yep. Which is like one of my favorite plot things, is when we pass off a girl as a boy. I grew up with Mulan. It was formative for me. I recently really liked that not recently, at this point I read, the Farship series a while ago, but the girl in the Mad Ship Robin Hobb's Mad Ship series, the girl who dresses up as a boy so she can go do pirate things. Lorien does go and help Asinia one night, which is very nice of him. He can't get her out. And then the next night, Priska goes to see Asinia, and Asinia is doing so much better. So this encourages her that she'll be able to get Asinia out. She goes to Lorien's room. He calls her Wildcat again, and then they are making out. Wait, no, not yet. I was in his arms, pressed against the door. His mouth was so close to mine. Tingles of anticipation swept through my body. I watched him wide-eyed and raptured, desperate to see what he would do next. I need a monster. He was hard and thick as he settled between my thighs, rocking against me. The next time you're in my arms like this, you're mine. Prepare yourself, Priska, because I'm out of patience. Great. Anyways, they can't do anything because there's a messenger at his door. So she stops time, slips past the messenger. She goes to talk to Vicer and she's like, hey, it's not enough to get Asinia and Demos out of the prison. I want to get everybody out of the prison, all fucking 300 people. You say it like it's easy, like we haven't been trying for years. 2 weeks before God's Day, the king is holding another ball. According to the queen, some of the village representatives will be staying until God's Day. Think of the blow it will be for them to witness his entire dungeon escaping. Yeah, that would be a blow. Also, I just think it's really funny that, like, this girl who can't put 2 and 2 together is the one to tell the rebellion how to fix things. So, like, I love a rebellion. I think we know I love a rebellion. This is actually a good example for what we're talking about here. The rebellion just can't be good people. Like, the rebellion in here is not good people. They are people trying to rebel and meet their own ends. They are not wholly good or wholly bad. And even individually, there are people working in the rebellion that have their own objectives and are using each other to get to those objectives. So there's actually this really funny moment in here when one of the characters who has been working with the rebellion finds out that they have been manipulated by the rebellion into doing a task that is basically impossible that would benefit the rebellion, but the rebellion's like, well, if you die, you die. Like, I don't really fucking care. And they've been thinking this whole time, like, oh, I can finally get somewhere, I can help my family, and the rebellion's like, yeah, we don't give a shit about that. You die, you die. That's not our business. We have our own shit we're doing. And that makes for more stakes. It makes for more betrayals. This is just like, these are good people. And Priska walked in and she helped them because she was smarter than these people who've been running a rebellion without her this whole time. This is the thing is, I don't understand when people are like, well, why are you reading YA books? This is a YA book. This is a young adult book where the elements such as, not limited to, but such as the way rebellions are used is written way better than this adult book. So you can see that the age range it is written for doesn't really matter. It matters how you execute those ideas. You make it sound so simple. What are those people supposed to do when we get them out? Where are they going to go? I lifted my chin. I've been watching the prisoners, talking to some of them. The younger children, they mostly don't survive the dungeon. Most of those who are alive can still pass for 25 winters. They get a blue mark and they're free. If I could achieve such a miracle, the person wouldn't be able to handle 300 prisoners in one night. So basically somebody to fake a blue mark that marks them as somebody who isn't one of the corrupt that got some of their magic back. So they have to figure that part out, which they do, of course. And she's like, also, I need another charm for my eyes. They're lightening more each day. And he says, the woman we usually buy the charms from had to flee the city. Another was just killed. But then says, the charms are becoming difficult to find. Changing your eye color is the latest trend. Charms are being fixed to bracelets, rings, earrings. Okay, if they're becoming harder to find, then how can they also be on an uptrend in the city? Who are the rest of the people getting them from? Are they difficult to find or are they on an uptrend? Are they impossible to gather because they're outside your price range for the rebellion? Because difficult to find and difficult to get because of like issues of cost. Sure, that makes sense, but there's a difference between we can't find a person to do this and we can't pay a person to do this. And of course, her eye color is special, and she's like, not for the first time. I hated the strange color of my eyes. At no point does she think maybe Lorien is the Grimalian prince. She says, I knew Lorien wasn't the Grimalian prince. He'd slept on the ground next to me. He could have been in hiding and he could be the Grimalian prince. He'd stayed in the kinds of inns only villagers could afford. Yeah, he could have been in hiding. And he fought like someone who enjoyed it. And that makes him not a prince? Not just because he was trained. And sometimes when he fought, he moved faster than the eye could see. Maybe that was his power. And that makes him not a prince? Unless the Grimalian prince was incapacitated. I traveled with the mercenaries to the Grimalian border. The Fae handed Lorien a vial. It was possible the Fae either kidnapped or killed the real prince and Lorien took his place. In that case, the Grimalians wouldn't even know their prince was gone. Most of that is stuff that doesn't rule out him being the Grimalian prince. But okay, you're really stupid. But somehow you're saving the rebellion. But of course, she's thinking about him touching her again. When he touched me as he did last night, I felt like I was flying. I'd like to fly out of here, I tell you what. A seamstress comes in to work with her because, you know, there are balls coming up and she as one of the queen's maids now needs special pretty dresses. Of course she does. And she realizes that her eye color is completely back to normal now. And her seamstress looks at the blood drains from her face and she says, your eyes are beautiful. So she thinks that she recognized her from one of the, you know, wanted posters. We then change to Lorien's POV. The moment the wildcat walked in, my harden in anticipation. Thank you. What is your problem? Sometimes I long to be able to talk to her about my life. My problems are my own. And then so he's like, so you're planning to get them all out. Are you mad? I have a plan. Fine, I have the beginnings of a plan. She has concepts of a plan, guys. And he's like, well, this actually works out for me because the chaos that would ensue when the king learned his prisoners were missing, it would be the perfect distraction for my own plans. What are those plans? I don't know. I don't even remember. It doesn't matter. Are you sure all of them are hybrids? Yes. Thieves and murderers are taken to the city jail. Anyways, moving on to them, being into each other again. Priska gave me that knowing smile that made me want to strangle her or kiss her or both. I lost myself in a fantasy of my hand circling her throat while I thrust inside her. Okay, thank you for that. Making it clear that I was still in charge. Lorian, a blush tinged her cheekbone. She'd guessed where my mind had gone. This distraction had to stop. Oh, that would be lovely. Thank you so much. I literally fucking hate you. I don't want to hear about you having sex. I don't want to hear about your boners. I want you dead. I hate this guy. The fact that she'd somehow made me care about her like this to the extent that I was unfocused while on my own task, I glowered at her. She tells him about the seamstress. She's like, she remarked on the color of my eyes. Her face turned white. She rushed out of the room. It says that he has his murder face on. She's like, oh, I don't want her to die, Lorian, because she's like so good and he's like so bad. So then they start talking about the king. What is his name? Sabian? I don't remember. What do you know of him? He has a son, Jamek, who is away at one of the king's estates. Jamek has seen 19 winters, and he'll likely return for God's Day ball. According to the rumors, he rarely sees the king. And then she comments on the fact that she remembers that before her mother left her, her mother insisted that she find the prince. Great. Real on the nose there. Anyway, back into explaining like the king stuff. It was the king's great-great-grandfather who started the war with the Fae. And what do you know of Regnar's son? His name was Crotopos. Crotopos died, but his wife was pregnant with his son Abrius. Regnar's grandson took the throne. Abrius' son was named Hieronymus, Sabian's father. And what if I told you they were all the same man? I've read this before. This is not a new thing. I don't want to spoil it for you, but there's a YA book that did this, and I thought that it was a better book. And he's like, this is going to be shitty for her to realize because her own father had died because her brother only had a small amount of his healing power, and yet the king was almost immortal from sucking up everybody else's powers. I'm not playing a game. Regnar was the king who began taking his subject's power. You don't think it's possible he could find a way to mimic Fae and hybrids' long lives? Does he kill the boys he says are his sons? He's like, probably. And then he just like assumes their identity. Changing one's appearance is easy if you have access to the right kind of magic. I don't really understand how the magic works. So like when it's sucked into the Oshiarta stones, is it like it's just raw magic you could use for anything? Like moving the carriages without a horse? Or is it like particular things that happen? I don't know. And she's like, why does he do this? He's evil with the conviction that his actions are for the greater good. And I'm like, it is? Because it sounds like he just wants power. What's the greater good to him? We don't know. We switch back to Priska's POV, and one of the, many mean girls in the castle is like, you had something to do with the removal of this other girl from court. I don't even remember who it was. It doesn't matter. Unlike the rest of these idiots, I know how things work. No one stumbles into this position like you have. All you needed for your plan to work was for Katina to disappear. And when I find out what you did, I'm going to make you pay. Love it. Girl hate. So she's at one of the balls, and some random dude named Pater, who I don't know why he's here. He's dancing with our girl Priska. He calls Priska beautiful. She looks over to Lorian across the ballroom and it says, he couldn't possibly be jealous. Why wouldn't he possibly be jealous? You guys just like ran straight into being attracted to each other. He literally said he wants to fuck you the other day. Yeah, he might be jealous. What do you mean he couldn't possibly be? There is a possibility of that. I don't know why you didn't say, is it possible that he's jealous? I thought that he just wanted to fuck. I didn't realize that he would not want me to, be around other men. But no! She then sees Thol, the guy from her village, who she used to fool around with, I think, and he is taking up the position from his father of the leader of her village. Which village? Because again, it said that she moved around a lot. I guess just the most recent one. She wasn't worried about all the other villages, right? It would have made more sense if this was a girl who had been changing her appearance her entire life, but I guess not. Her and Lorian get into it, and he says to her, you talk about saving the hybrids in the dungeon beneath, but you're still that scared little girl who's waiting to wake up from a nightmare. You better find a way to stop running away from your fate, because the kinds of people who refuse to help What? To accept the realities of their lives are not the same people who free the helpless and enslave. Fantastic. She tries to leave. He spins her up against a wall. Why are you so upset? Ew. Oh my God. Actually, this is very typical of men. Says something shitty, then asks why you're upset. You just called me a scared little girl, and you've called me worse. No, actually, this is a good depiction of how men are these days. Yeah, actually. She says not everything about her is his business. He says everything that concerns you is my business. When you're crying into your pillow tonight, remember one thing, it never would have worked between you two, as in her and that guy who led her village. You weren't meant for a life of safety, a life of kisses on your cheek and mediocre fucking, a life of gossiping with villagers. Then his mouth was on mine, and I could taste his frustration and fury. What does that taste like? The air left my lungs, but breathing was secondary to the feel of him hard and enraged against me. Oh yes, nothing turns me on like a man enraged. Your Thol never would have given you this, he whispered against my mouth. And then he takes a step back and says, until you face up to the reality of your life, you will forever be a victim to it. Say victim one more time. Say it one more time. In the next chapter, the seamstress who saw her real eye color comes back to talk to her. And she's like, I recognized you from your eyes. I knew your mother. Your mother was my best friend. You called me aunt. She met me years before she knew your father. When she was looking for a seamstress she could trust to be honest with her. We became close. We shared everything, and when it was time for children, she begged me to stay on as your nanny. Your real name is Neleira. Oh God. She asked what happened to her parents. Did they die? Her seamstress aunt says she isn't sure. I fell while I was fleeing and I hit my head. Convenient. When I woke up, I was half buried in ash and our city was gone. The king's people came and rounded up any survivors. Most assumed we were saved, but somehow he knew many of us were hybrids. No, that doesn't make any sense. They were you're gonna find out later they were in the hybrid kingdom and her parents were the leaders of the hybrids. Like, what do you mean? Oh my God, these hybrids are hybrids. What do you mean? I'm confused. Did I miss something? Somehow he knew they were hybrids. Well, then why was the hybrid land attacked? Of course they were hybrids. What do you mean? I was supposed to burn with the others, but the queen learned of my skill as a seamstress and the king spared me. And then she says, your brother is alive and he's here in the castle. I don't know how she knew this. And she's like, he's that guy in the dungeon. His name is Demos. So she goes down to talk to Demos, conveniently the guy directly next to her best friend who Vicer also wanted, to get out of the dungeon. Just convenience after convenience here. She's like, I'm your sister. He's like, oh, Neleira, oh gods. Our mother died because we were looking for you that night instead of paying attention to the people who warned the Fae Prince had been spotted outside our city walls. So she believes, or they all believe, that the Fae were the ones who attacked the hybrid kingdom, I guess. They were in the city, so that was a hybrid city then, right? So because their parents were in charge of the hybrids. That hasn't been said in the text yet, but for some reason, nobody's telling her that yet because it has to be a big reveal later. And of course, who's going to reveal it? Lorien. But I just don't understand why, how somehow he knew we were hybrids, but it was a hybrid city, wasn't it? And then they argue about the fact that she calls the woman who kidnapped her mother, and he's like, that's not your mother. One of the queen's maids who she has been speaking to is also the daughter of this guy named Patriarch Pharaoh. She randomly eavesdrops on a conversation between the two of them where Medinia is revealing to her father that she's a hybrid. And so this scene is just absolutely bonkers. But Priska walks in and she's like, the king, Medinia, you need to know that the king has been taking all of our magic for himself. And she's like, Father, is this true? And he's like, yeah, only the king's inner circle knows. So me and 5 other men. She extorts this guy into saying, repeat after me, I am weak and I am also a hypocrite. I don't know why we needed to do this and waste time on this. Anyway, this guy's not going to turn her in, and she's going to get Medinia out of the city because Medinia is also a hybrid. Lorien reveals to her that he's looking for an amulet. It's a blue stone set in silver with ancient writing. Ancient writing. Just ancient. It's just ancient. It can't just be different writing. You can't say what kind of script it is. It's ancient. How does she know the dating of this writing? Who knows? Ancient writing etched into the back. That's why I'm here. Ancient writing is some shit that I wrote in my Lord of the Rings fanfic when I was 12. I'm positive it's in the castle somewhere. I've searched the libraries, Sabium's chambers, and everywhere it's rumored to be. Why can't you kill the king? He doesn't answer the question and he just calls her a vicious thing. I can't kill the king yet because I have other plans in motion, and if he were to die early, I wouldn't be able to finish my task. That's not an answer. I don't know why he can't kill the king. Are you ever going to tell me who you are? Yes, but not today. Why not? Doesn't answer. We switch into Lorien's POV. He's thinking about her, saying she looked beautiful, even with her darkened hair and eyes. She also looked tired, almost fragile. And I clamped down on the urge to haul her over my shoulder, dump her on my bed, and order her to... Hello. As you can see, I am yet again in another outfit. It's the same day. It's just that I had to take a break because once again, I'm having problems with another work thing, which is my camera now. I had to order a new SD card because I think my other one is failing me. And I took a break to go export my footage and I spilled my yogurt all over my v-neck. So now I'm in my Assassin's Creed hoodie to come finish this with you. It's like everything wants this video not to get out to you, I swear to God. The yogurt was my 13th reason. I'm just kidding. It's a joke. Okay, where were we? They were at the ball. We're in Lorien's POV. He wanted to haul her over his shoulder. His friend Marth is looking at her. He was watching Priska in a way that made me want to tear out his throat. I somehow managed not to snarl at him. Wow, you're such a good friend, buddy. She's the first woman you felt anything for since. Careful, he says to his friend, friendly. And she's the same woman you left to die. Now you're pushing her away because deep down you know it'll be worse when she eventually sees who you really are and hates you still. Then they realize that something's wrong with Priska, because of course there is. I went still. Wrath rose inside me, a beast that howled for vengeance. Immediately, his first thought is not, how can I help? It's vengeance, because everything's about him. But at least he's not a victim, right? Because that would be the worst thing. The worst thing that you can be is a victim, not an asshole. They realize she's stumbling because she's been poisoned. The healer that they get is not good enough, and he's like, all you can do is gather her family and tell them to say goodbye. And he growls at the healer, and he's like, go find her brother, because he is also a healer. In Priska's POV, she hears Lorien telling her, you fight or everyone dies. Then she has a memory while asleep, conveniently, of course, where she's talking to her biological brother Demos, the guy in the dungeon, who says, as a 6-year-old, Mama was crying yesterday. And her, at 3 years old, says, crying? Truly? This is not how children talk. My kids were this age, it feels like yesterday. They're not that much older. And they didn't talk like this. That's weird. It's weird when we depict kids not acting like kids. I don't know why we do that. Then something taps on her window. Someone grabs her. And in the distance, she hears her mother screaming before she falls asleep because they, I don't know, chloroformed her or some shit. Not literally chloroformed, just whatever magical chloroform they used in this. In the next chapter, we're back in Lorien's POV, and it's just a quick letter exchange between him and his brother. Dear Lorien, according to my sources, you recently become quite unhinged when the woman you claim is the bane of your existence almost died. And to his brother, he writes back, go f*** yourself. He's so cool. Like, he's just like not like other brothers. Back in Priska's POV, they are figuring out who the poisoner is, but that doesn't matter because Lorien is talking about how hot she is. You looked so beautiful dancing with that piece of courtier. Remember Peter or Padir or whatever his name is? Yeah. He was just there to make Lorien jealous. And all I wanted to do was rip your dress off you and press you up against the closest wall. I thought I knew what jealousy was, and then you saw him, the man you've always wanted, the man you'd choose if you had your way. And I almost slaughtered him right there. Oh, actually, no, we're talking about Thol, the other guy who is also completely irrelevant to the story. I keep mixing them up because, you know, they don't actually fucking matter. He says that he wants to make her scream for him, but you're too weak right now. I disagree. When you can walk to the bathing room by yourself, then we'll talk. But Wildcat, when I finally get you in my bed, I'm not stopping until you forget your own name. Oh my God, where have I heard this before? Every other book that I've read. And in every single one, a little piece of me died. Is anybody else just not really thinking about their own name during, you know, super special fun time? Of course I forgot my own name. I'm not thinking about it. Kind of singularly focused, if you know what I mean. What, is there a test? I have to write my name on the top and I forgot? I don't think so. My God, I'm going to make you forget your social security number. I wasn't thinking about that at all. It's far away, regardless. As the baseline, already not thinking about it. Like, is there a test in the middle? Like you're right on the precipice and they're going to ask, all right, what's your name? And you're like, I don't think that's happening. And I'm just begging for these books to like differentiate themselves in, you know, super special fun time. If all of the books are saying this, if I can look up that book, look up like any given book and that line is in there, maybe your book doesn't also need it. Maybe it's time to reinvent the wheel. No, not reinvent the wheel. It's just like even less, it's just time to use a new thing. Like, can we just use a new thing? Somebody in my comments recently was like, you know, AO3 is really creative. Like there were people on there doing really creative stuff with super special fun time, right? And I'm like, yeah, why didn't more authors learn to write super special fun time on AO3? It feels like they're just learning from the same baseline. The creativity is dead in these scenes. They are all the same. She realizes that he's the one who's been leaving her a favorite fruit of hers every morning called a Valio. Apparently I was supposed to care about this. If this was supposed to make me like him, I can't, because he tells her, you will not be a victim, and I want to force you to do things that you don't want to do, even though that's like emotionally devastating for you. I don't care what kind of fruit he leaves her. He could leave her a passion fruit, my personal favorite, and I would still want him to jump off a cliff. Dear L, his brother's sending him another letter. I do hope you're feeling more yourself after your last letter. Please update me on the current situation. Is it true that woman has the power of time? Yes, she has the power of time and has kept me frozen for several moments. Everything else is going according to plan, apart from the fact that I still can't find what we're looking for. Changes to Priska's POV. She asks, I think her biological brother, Demos, hey, when we snuck into the city, I used my power, but there was a man who didn't freeze. He had blonde hair and he turned and looked at me and winked. And Demos is like, oh yeah, power magic runs in our family, so that was a cousin. That's it. Yay! Thanks for clearing that up. She knows where the amulet is that Lorien has been looking for, you know, the one with ancient script on it. And she's like, I'll help you get it, but you have to help me get the prisoners out in return. If you think I have the ability to trust anyone else with my task, you obviously don't know me at all. And then he like threatens her, but with like super special fun time, because she's like, oh, you'd have to torture the location out of me. He's like, I would need to torture you a few hours in my bed and you'd answer any question I asked. And then he gets mad at her for having been in the dungeons, and then she gets annoyed because both her brother, biological, and him are being too overprotective, and it says, spare me from overprotective males. And I'm like, yeah, spare me first, though. Me first. I call dibs. Get me away from these men. His huge body was caging mine. Oh, wait, I said it in the wrong voice. His huge body was caging mine. Tell me you want me, Wildcat. Now they're about to, I want you so badly that I wake up in the middle of the night, a single stroke away from... God's that smart mouth. You don't want to know the things I've dreamt about doing with your mouth. Oh, I don't want to know, actually. Keep it to yourself. Secret, hurt someone. And then we're going to do the thing. What thing? One of the things that we do in every book, because she thinks that once he takes her to his bed, I'd be ruined for any other man. Great. They say that they like each other. Cool. And then while he's doing stuff, he says, I knew you'd be like this. While it was difficult to believe I was just that intimate with Lorien, at the same time, it felt strangely inevitable. He just kind of, goes south and does nice things. I don't want to get demonetized. I can't handle that again this week. But doesn't do anything else for himself. You know what I mean? I need you healthy for the things I want to do to you. Now leave before I can no longer control myself. Why is every man a predator? I'm tired of it. It's another thing. I'm putting it on the list. Somebody make me another spread of what's it called? Bingo board. I think somebody already did. Did one of my patrons make me one of those? He says that she needs to leave before he can't control himself anymore. The idea of Lorien, the man who always was in control, now having to fight for restraint, and then he kicks her out. He says, out! Romance is dead, folks. In the next chapter, they decide that in order to trust each other, they have to make a blood vow. And apparently she's healed up enough that after this blood vow, they are so hot and bothered that they simply cannot hold off any longer. You were designed to make me insane. Oh my God, the feeling is mutual. You were literally written to drive me out of my mind. And you know what? I'm gone. Tell me you don't want this Wildcat, but tell me now. Put that on the list too. You're big. You can take me.
Where's that blasted salami? I can smell it.
Wildcat, I plan to make you so insane with pleasure you won't even know where to find your magic. Again, would that be a priority? I don't think it would be. He says things like, do you like this? Which is one of my major icks, is men who say, do you like that? During super special fun time. Me and my friends in high school, we would make fun of guys who we didn't like in our class. And we would say that he looks like a do you like that? Been a long-term ick for me. It's a 16-year-long ick. He calls her a demanding creature. And then he says, you'll know no other man can make you feel the way I do. Yep, there it is again. So that we know that he's the biggest eggplant to ever eggplant and the best eggplant to ever eggplant because he's the main character. I was suddenly too full. Take me, Priska. He just purrs the word made for me and then says, for me, Wildcat. Nice. Great. Love it. Woohoo. It changes to Lorian's POV, and she asks him, why did you leave me that day at the river? When I first saw you, I didn't see a person. Oh my God. Romance. Am I right? I saw a problem I had no answer to, and then you looked at me, and I knew you'd survive. Oh, well, thank goodness. Because, you know, it's not like you would want her to be a victim, because remember, that's the worst thing that somebody can be. I saw a burning rage, a wrath, and retribution within you just waiting to be freed. You killed 2 men. That's just a rather retribution within you just waiting to be freed. You killed 2 men. He's like, see, I was right. I left you so that you could kill people and learn to be as hard and tough as I am. Oh my God. What a babe. When I saw you and your poor attempt to sneak up on us, I wanted you so badly I was enraged. You ever wanted somebody so bad it made you angry? Me neither, because I'm normal. Back to Priska's POV, thank God. They find out that the king has filled in the super special dungeon tunnel. Sabium knows someone was in his dungeon and he's setting up some kind of trap. She realizes that she can see through Lorian's disguise and nobody else can. She realizes that he's disguised. He looks different to everybody else than she sees him. Back in Lorian's POV, great. They're going to do another super special scene again. Why? I don't know. I don't know. It's designed to make me lose it. They're, plotting all of this. He needs that super special stone thing, blue stone with the ancient script on it. And she got Vicer and the rest of the rebels to help, she says. So, the plan is on, whatever fucking plan that is. Vicer agreed to help. Now is not the time to say another man's name. My mouth slammed down on her. He says, already slick for me. You enjoy making me lose control, don't you? You enjoy making me lose my mind, don't you? I sank all the way to the hilt. Oh my God, who's got bingo? I know one of you does, right? Who's got bingo? He doesn't like that she's trying to go her own pace in their escapade, and he reminds her that they're going at his pace. My pace, I reminded. And then it says, I so hard I had to steady myself with a hand against the wall. I'm losing my mind so hard, I'm doing the same. I told her she was mine, but she hadn't truly accepted it. Soon she would learn exactly what that meant. I'm guessing they're mates. Back in Priska's POV, we get another random maid character, except this one, she's like, I don't know why you're so worked up, but tell me this. Should I inform the servants to stay away from the castle tonight? This is just another way to make Priska look like a good person. Do you want to leave here, Decelis? My family lives in the city. And then she realizes that Priska is one of the hybrids. I won't say a word, but I have a niece. Her name is Hanish. Tell me you'll get her out too. Okay, so in the ballroom, they freeze everybody. They steal some jewels from the queen. They go down to the dungeons. They have been slowly healing all of the prisoners from the iron poisoning. She's used her magic to stop time, so the bad people are all frozen. They stole a bunch of their jewels to hand to the prisoners. They got a bunch of cloaks, and they handed the prisoners each a cloak and a pocket full of jewels and gold coins, so that they can get out of here.
Come on, move it. We're missing dinner.
She murders the king's assessor, who she watched slaughter a little boy and his family when she was a kid. Something in me awakening at the sound of his gurgles, trying to make her sound super hard and, badass like Lorian. Something that craved the blood of my enemies. Yeah, okay. Yeah, sure, I believe ya. Back in Lorian's POV, yay! It's revealed in his POV that Priska is the heir to the hybrid kingdom. Oh my goodness, she's the secret heir. And he knows, and he knows that his brother knows. He asks the seamstress / her aunt, why didn't you tell Priska the truth about her heritage? And we get some bullshit answer. Then he has to fight some stone hags who he also saw at the beginning. When she saw him meeting with the Fae, it was because he had gotten a potion from the Fae to make him look like somebody else. Anyway, she goes and gets the jewel. She steals it, and she is supposed to meet up with him. So she does not know that she's the heir to the hybrid kingdom yet. She's still at the castle. While stealing it, one of the mean girl maids sneaks up on her. The king has already rewarded me for my loyalty, and I look forward to watching you burn. And your corrupt tricks, they don't work on me. I've been truly blessed by the gods. She's a null, which means that powers don't work on her. It doesn't matter. She gets away. She steals a bunch more shit, but the slums are burning. The evil, king and his people are burning the slums. For some reason, there's even slums in the city, even though the people in the city are supposed to be the ones that are more in power. But then the people in the villages are supposed to have less power, but then I guess the people in the slums also have less power. I don't know. The old orphanage where the rebels were camped out, that's burning. Well, Patriarch Pharaoh is also dead now. So is the assessor. Not that either of them actually mattered. She meets up with Lorien. She has the amulet with the, ancient script. And he's like, none of your prisoners are going to go anywhere unless you give me that amulet. So she hands him the amulet. Lorien's ears grew longer and pointed. I thought he was a hybrid like me. I thought we were fighting for the same cause. Something deep inside my chest cracked open and I gasped with the pain. Lorien's eyes met mine once more, as if he'd somehow heard that intake of breath. The men that she thought were mercenaries didn't just have one magical ability. They had many, but their power had been hugely diminished for some reason, and they wanted it back because they were Fae. That was why they were here. You're the bloodthirsty prince! He was the Fae prince who had leveled Krawith, the Fae prince who had murdered my real parents. So Lorien starts putting fingers to all the prisoners' temples and giving them a blue mark so that they could start a new life and they don't look like hybrids. They look like people who gave their magic back, like non-corrupt people. He's like, by the way, you're the heir to the hybrid kingdom. The continent was never barren. The hybrid kingdom was beautiful. When your kingdom was invaded, many fled north to the mountains, and they've remained hidden ever since. Their rules of succession specify that only those with time magic can rule. Her biological brother, got shot through the chest with an arrow by, the evil king people. Adopted brother, Tibris, just happens to run out of his healing magic right then. He burns out. And Lorien's like, I'll heal your brother. And in exchange, you come with me to my kingdom. He calls her a wicked little savage. She asks him, why didn't you kill Sabium? And he says, again, it's not his time to die yet. He explains that the vial that they picked up at the Grimalian border was the Grimalian prince's blood. Even my glamoured human form would be recognizable to those who know what I am. And she's like, okay, so you want me to go with you so that you're going to use me somehow. He's like, yeah, didn't you used to tell me that you used to see me in your dreams? So he agrees to heal her brother. She's going to go with him. And it ends with, I would make the bloodthirsty prince pay for his lies. For everything he'd done to my family and people, I took a deep steadying breath and I put my hand in his. The end. So we're right back to where we started with her hating him. So we get to do that for more books, except it's going to be in the next book. I hate him, but I can't help but remember the way he turned my body to putty in his hands and made me forget my own name. It's every book ever. I have nothing left to say. I've said all that I needed to. I have made fun of this enough for hours. I am all done now. What did we even achieve? I have no idea who I would even recommend this to. Again, nothing here stands out. It's not like, oh, do you want a character who swears revenge? This is not that. She's saying that, but that's not a thing that actually comes about on page. That's not like a thing that comes to fruition in an organic way. That's just a thing that was told to us. You could sub her in with literally anybody. There's nothing defining about her, but then again, you can do that also with the countries in this, the king in this. You could sub him in. He's not identifiable. Nobody is. Nothing in this stands out. You have eaten this potato chip before. 1 star. Books can be better than this. This has no reason to be this lackluster and to not answer its own questions and to have such stupid payoffs. And also, that whole victim mentality thing really pisses me off. I don't like that. You can feel however you want about it. If you've ever been victimized or you've survived anything, you can feel how you want. But I take that stance that I don't like it. And I really don't like that. It got brought up 5 times in a way that I felt icky about. I don't like that. I do not recommend it. If it's your favorite book, I'm happy for you. I didn't like it. I don't want to continue the rest of the series. That's how bad I think this is. There's nothing even to laugh at. It just pissed me off. I'm not even interested in seeing if it can fix its own problems. I genuinely don't believe that it can. It's not often I take that stance where I'm like, well, maybe in the next book. Nope, not even in the next book. It cannot happen. It will not happen. If you made it this far, leave a clock emoji for stopping time down below. Thank you so much for watching. Comments and questions go down below. I will see you next time. Bye. And before I go, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my Therapy Bills patrons, and those are Alexander, Andy, Ashley H, Astra, Call Me Kodiak, Choco's Homesick for Taiwan, DJ Rocktopus, Ellie, Emerald Dodge, Eric D, John E, K, Kaleno K, Casey M, Catherine P, Katie M, Quinn, Lady Kittybug, Lady Chips, Lemon Jelly, Lek, Other Lek, Lily, Mataraptor, Max B, Megwin Rose, Mixer Boneless, Alice, Peggy Luhu, Rain, Reese, SJ, Samar, Scarlet, SMK, Steph, 3 Raccoons in a Trench Coat, Tori, Urchin Audrey, White Raven 13, and Zorvictia. Thank you all so much for being here in the new year and for being a friend. And I have to say a thank you to my Potato Starch Marxist patrons, and those are a third more powerful Lex, Alejandra, Alicia's last frayed nerve, Alistair, Althea, Amanda D, Angelica, Artie the Ninth, Ava, Beck, Blythe, Bookish by Jenna, Bookish Rabbit, Bree, Kate B, Caitlin P, Carlin, Carly, Casper, Kate W, Catherine, Kathy, Celeste, Claire Online, Cole, Colleen, Corwin, Courtney, Darius, Danielle, Darren, Desiree Michelle, Dilf Enthusiast in the Silco Apologist era. You know what? Yeah, I get it. I finally watched Arcane, so I get it now. Dorian, Dorothea is not like other girls. Dracoshan, Drive-By Thinker, Dirkelsberg, Ebby, Emily A, Emma, Aaron with 2 E's, Fiona, Gadarn, Halia Artisan, Hannah C, Harpy Kuro, Helen P, Hurry Singh, JM Tennant, Jay is on Olympus, Jelly V, Jen Michelle, Genderqueer, Jenny G, Jill, Jojo Bookish, Juicy Wizard, Kai Brecker, Caitlin M, Catherine M, Katie L, Katrina, Kaylee, Kayala, Kendra, KMTB, Laughing Cat Dog, Laura is Angry, Lauren G, Lazarus Ray, Lindsay M, Lisa B, Lisa L, LP, Lou Siri, Lustful Octopus, Martin, Maddie, Madison, Man-Eating Plant, Megan, Malara, May, Mima Who, Morgan, Myth, Myth Lesbian, Never, Nicole G, Nicole R, Paige P, Paul, Penelope, Penny Chilling, Foxglove, Plague Carrier, Pandemonium, Queen Cereal, Rachel B, Reba, Rebecca, Rebecca R, Rhea, Ronnie, Rosie Thorns, Rowan, Sakuria, Saintbringer, Saki Alume, Sarah H, Sarah the Bear, Shamed, Shannon, Sheen Onion, Sean, Sophie, Stardust, T Delegati, Talia, That Nerdy Mystic, That One Cute Chick, This Is Not a Trap, Tiana, Too Thick to Work Today, Trash Can Teddy, Dribble M, Dido Phoenix, Unicorn Jenny, and Writer A. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend.